Go ahead.
Michael, I'm gonna get to your post here soon because you know that I called you before you even posted that post, and I was kind of pushing back a little bit. But let me get to Hans, and then we'll go back to you, Michael, because I know that some of the community members been patiently waiting, and I hate
Yeah, go
keeping
for
them
it.
waiting. Okay, appreciate that. So, of course, my co-host, and then I know that it's time's been waiting. I see you positive, Steve. I'll go back to you. Go ahead, Starboard.
Oh, real quick, real quick. I would push back on Curtis a little tiny bit about the worth of this on a Saturday afternoon. The truth is, it is good entertainment. It's also good for us. You know, it's been 2 years. You forget stuff, and it's great to hear everybody in this space that's so knowledgeable just hear it again. Little things that we've forgotten in the drudgery every day, and new things pop up, and we're trying to understand and communicate, and you forget things. But it mostly because, my God, when you just imitated her, I that was worth the whole afternoon. So thank you for that.
I am it's my pleasure, and I'm also sorry, like half of my family is from the deep south, and so it is a thing. I can do it as an honorary hillbilly. I can do this accent on command
Uh,
all day every day.
I,
Artburn, I don't care. It's not
I
whether
don't
it's
know.
offensive to you or not. I do not
I
care.
don't know. No, no, I will have a hillbilly off with you any day, honey bunny.
Oh my God, you sound just like her, Arbor.
I haven't laughed
I
this
know
hard all
her.
week.
uh,
Between the music, the Disney music behind Drew talking so seriously, and then your imitation, I thank you guys. Thank you very much.
There might be a little
Like,
critter talking in your DMs soon. She's going around talking crap about all these MMTLP poor people investing in a stock that I'm also invested in, but they invested in our pump and dump. Pump and dump, they're so pathetic.
it's like a mixture of like the Wicked Witch from the West, Boomhauer, and Teeter.
oh my,
All had this rabid raccoon. It's beautiful.
that's fucking insane. Sounds just like her. Oh, you guys haven't seen the Indian accent that Curtis can do, but nevertheless, we'll leave that to another day. Um, so let's go to it's time positive, and then Steve. Go ahead. It's time. And good questions, by the way.
Just had some 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 reflection on this space, and maybe some things taken away from my past experiences in life. A lot of times you run across a situation where an individual's either playing stupid or they are stupid. And I quit trying to guess a long time ago because they'll tell on themselves. But it's been my experience when those two things are playing out, common sense will bite them in the ass at some point. And when you don't want to talk about a subject or it doesn't benefit what you're trying to say, you kind of play stupid or you act like you don't know nothing about it. But it's also been my experience in life. Every cowboy I've ever known understands something about property rights. And every cowboy I've ever met has participated or understands how an auction works. And with those two principles, that lead you to know what supply and demand value of something is. So to try to act like you're so stupid that you don't understand the other side of this, common sense bites you in the ass. Just thought I'd point that out.
And that is what the stock market is lacking is the supply and demand, and they got caught on the other side. So I mean, bankrupt the company. That's exactly their mo. Look what happened to metal materials. All right, so let's go to Steve and then positive.
All right, thanks again. Yeah, I've been trying to get my ass about to Florida. I've been laughing and rolling around here. It's hilarious. It's pissing down rain here, and I'm in the South. Oh, got the y'all. But he just saying about the Texans, man, of cows and oil and property rights. And then you go back to the cowboy days, like you were just saying.
Full.
They know what the fuck's up. I mean, they in it to win it. But again, to change topic, to go on with Scrotum, did he not say with the Railroad Commission that if a bill is due, that they have a machine, it's computerized, that kick out a invoice to say, you owe us money. Now, university lands, there was no invoices, there was no bills due until all of a sudden here recently that the royalties are past due, and they've been past due since the lease has been active, that nobody's paid.
Are you suggesting that the bill was automatically generated?
Yeah, I don't know if I got cut off again or got muted somehow. I know that Scrotum had said that the Railroad Commission, if they have a bill come due, they automatically, the machine, the computer kicks out an invoice, and a person or somebody will put it in an envelope and mail it.
That's why I asked if he had intimate knowledge. But again, I wanted to see if he was going to say any more or not. And I'm fully aware that they're probably streaming the space elsewhere. But it says specifically, and there's a reason I did not mention this part, it says on May 3rd, 2024, NBH received an email.
Okay, hold up. I'm not a shill. This is not financial advice. They are streaming. I just checked my screen and they are on right now.
That's fine. It's totally fine. There's nothing to hide or to be disingenuous about. I'm just saying.
I'm just public knowledge. Hey, he was asked a question. He answered the question.
But he.
That's all I want to hear.
I don't know if he was speaking on assumption or speaking with intimate knowledge, which is why I asked that follow-up question.
Exactly.
But
I hear you.
Again, it states on May 3rd, 2024, and we've seen that email now. MBH received an email from redacted of UL regarding the non-payment of minimum royalties as outlined in the original oil and gas leases.
Excuse me. Oh, sorry. No, continue.
So that there's no prior communication that's referenced. So to our, to I guess the public knowledge, it was on May 3rd, 2024 that they're receiving the notification for the first time. There's no reference to prior email communications or any communications for that matter.
Thank you, Curtis. Go ahead, positive.
Busy, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, buddy?
I'm going back to the university lands and this Scrotum. I love that name, Scrotum. He keeps going back to saying that the land is worthless. So university lands would throw somebody off a property, losing all that money just because Slocum says there's no oil there. So that means that they're not getting any money at all because he's saying there's no oil there. We offered them 10 times and they still didn't retain the lease. You know what I'm saying? So now they got nothing. So Slocum's going on social media saying that there's nothing there. So who else is going to take over this lease? Nobody's going to take it over. He just keeps saying that the land is worthless. So you basically took money out of university lands, which actually hurts the state of Texas.
Yeah,
Good point.
That was the point of Jen's question.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, I just came in. That's the only thing that I want to ask this guy, and I always miss my chance. It's like, why would somebody say no to money even though they know there's nothing there? Like, nobody would say no. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't get my words out the way I want to get them out.
No, your point is a good one, and that's why there's an arbitration process that exists. So if and he said, all right, if you want to hold out hope of your pipe dream for something working out in the next 6 months, then it's your right to do so. But that's going to be the interesting piece. That's going to be
it's like somebody offering you something for free. Here, take this thing for free, and you say no. I'll give you $10, and the guy still says no.
Well, I think there's more to meet the eye here because there was some sabotaging, and again, just like they go right behind us, in Congress, and try to persuade them that this was a scam. It was the CEO's fault. They're doing the same thing through the university lens, and this is why I came out a few months ago and I said that this is what's happening. So let it just all play out. Again, you're not all wrong. Let it just play out. um, okay, let's go. Hey, Bishop, I see you that you're waving at me, but I don't see you trying to
Can
request
I
the
say something
mic.
right quick?
Yeah, yeah, and then I have to go to
I
Anthony.
understand.
Poor Anthony.
Sorry, I just had a quick point here. um, they're always wanting to discuss things that are opinions, and the value of that property is someone's opinion. I think it's nothing more than a distraction. When you try to catch a ball, you take your eye off it, you have a hard time catching it. We've got the market situation that is facts and not opinions, and that's a huge problem. I think that's where we can make a difference. Our opinions on what the value is means nothing, just like everyone else's opinions. Let's stick to the points where the facts are and where this problem lies, where there's been wrongdoing.
Sorry to jump in, Steve. Are you like brand new today? You just jumped on Twitter today, or you've been here for a while?
I seen Steve.
No, Steve here. I just signed up to Twitter in November. I've been in since Torch, OG original, and I was on like the bullshit Reddit, stock Twitch, and all that crap.
Oh, so you know
And I
about
have a piece.
everything that's happened in the past 2+ years.
Oh hell yeah, yeah, I
Oh,
know
okay.
everything. Well, not
Okay, I
everything.
thought you were like really new, like
Uh,
green.
no. I mean, with dates and amounts and conversations, S1s, perspectives, Torchlight, the whole biotech crap going on now with the Torch CUSIP. And I would listen and I wouldn't speak. I'm to the point now of
Steve, we're glad you're here. We're glad you grabbed the
Yeah,
mic.
absolutely. Nice
Thank
to see
you.
you.
thank you very much. And I mean, of my ex-girlfriend, I mean, I ran my mouth pretty much every day watching the stock market, invested money in and watched it being taken away, and watched my whole portfolio just get kicked to shit. I mean, it got kicked down into the dirt. They pretty much, my whole retirement, they fucking took it. Excuse my language. And now that I finally have I can voice my opinion, and being not financial advice, it's corrupt to the core. The rich get richer, and they keep the poor poor. Administration right now is awesome. I mean, I jumped up and down when President Trump when he won. Inauguration, I fucking cried.
We're all here with you, Steve.
I mean, I'm a grown ass man, and I fucking literally cried with my hands in the air of finally, fucking finally.
This is the hope we've been fighting for.
Mm-hmm. And then I heard about the metamaterials MMAT with the nanotechnology, the glucose-wise, the 300, 400, 500 patents. And old Palikaris, he got blindsided. He was over in, I think it was in Japan with Sanyo or Sony One, trying to negotiate a contract, and come back to Canada, and then find out he got fucking kicked out the door. That old Uzi Sasan and crowd done fucking booted his ass out. And that's when Meta went into the shitter and started on a downhill climb or downhill descent, snowball rolling down the hill real fast. And here they are. I'm in metamaterials as well. I'm in there for about 80 grand. I mean, I thought it was all this new technology, and man, hey, it was great.
It was a great investment.
I didn't want to get filthy ass rich. I just wanted, hey, to take care of my retirement, take care of my family, my children, and live comfortable. And these fucks, not the card table, chessboard, whatever you want to call it, and now play by their rules. I'm here till I'm out of breath.
Thank you, Steve. I gotta go to hand, Steve. All right,
Thank
let's
you.
go. No problem, Steve. Go ahead, Anthony. I apologize for making you wait so long.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I just wanted, I mean, I know this sounds like I'm dumbing it down, but really, truly, even if you concede the argument with the gas and the oil, whatever his argument is, it still doesn't change what we're disputing. Our dispute is with what happened on the other side of this. And still, nobody, I mean, you could just dumb it down to that, really. That's our argument. Our argument, there's shorts. Prove that there's not. We have enough already in the ether to take a look at it. So do exactly what Doge is doing and audit the fuck out of the SEC and FINRA and figure out what happened. We already have enough information, but no one ever talks about that side. They want to just discuss this oil and gas. But even if you concede that point, it still doesn't change what our dispute is. And that's really the bottom line. You could just dumb it down to that.
There's one question. What is the share count? Prove
Correct.
yourselves right. Prove us wrong. Prove it all. Share count.
You
Share
throw
count.
it. I mean,
They never talk about it.
It's that easy, and then we go away. I don't know what the hell they're going to do because they're going to have nothing to do after that. But at least it puts it to bed. And at this point, it's not. So, yeah, I mean, and we have enough, like I said, in the ether to at least do an investigation on that, which I guess, I don't know, maybe hopefully Doge gets into the guts of the SEC and whatever it is they got to do and straighten the shit out.
Well, it's coming. It's coming. All right, Anthony, if you were done,
I'm done. I'm
Rob,
going to eat,
because
but I'll be listening.
Enjoy yourself, sir. Go ahead.
Hey,
Rob.
good afternoon. Great space. Love it. Let's see how many. Hold on one sec here. Yeah, so I put something up in the nest. And so here's the big question to all the people listening, which are quite a few on this Saturday afternoon. You guys can make the discernment on who do you want to believe. The question is Tom or Mike. Mike Mullen, who is a president at Stimulation Petrophysics Consulting, who is a Missouri University of Science and Technology, who resides in Denver, Colorado, and I live really close to there. And Mike is the president and founder of Stimulation Petrophysics Consulting, LLC. He has over 39 years of field wireline logging and formation evaluation. So according to Mike, and like I said, it's in the nest, based on the analysis by Mike Mullen, president and founder of Stimulation Petrophysics Consulting, the Oro Grande Basin has a recoverable reserves estimate of 3.7 billion barrels of oil equivalent, and that's the plain old. Okay, anyways, so he says that. So everyone who's on here, you guys make your own choice. You can either believe somebody on X, on a space on X, or you can believe a person who actually has experience, which is this person here, Mr. Mike Mullen. So that's all I'm saying. And you can do your own research on that.
Curtis, did you want to respond to that? Because I know you were throwing out 100s.
No, I'm good.
Okay. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you for the space. It's a good space.
No problem. All right. Who is next? I think we're good. Okay, Michael. Michael, you caused a stir with that post, and I know the community was asking questions about it. I know when I seen the Montreal post, I actually called you and I said, "Who the hell is this person?" Do you want to explain your post? And I mean, I know the community was wondering, and I know that it wasn't you that got to the 60 to 400 because that Montreal guy was saying like 4 times, and then you went back to see where was the last trade and blah, blah. So I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot to that, and it was like I guess, stuck between a rock and a hard place as far as like, should I say anything? Because I knew it was going to circulate, and that account, it's not someone I know, right? It's not Pulte. It's definitely not Pulte. Pulte's been dark for a while because he's getting confirmed. Just FYI. So, um, which is cool. I mean, he's anyway. Um, but there's just seemed to be a lot of people in the know. Like, just a little context to kind of rewind a little bit. Trump had like been paying people, I think, for like a whole year um, before he started, just to get going, so that things could happen so quickly that the swamp couldn't stop it. And so I don't know. There are all these big players that are involved in things that are happening that are just not shocking, right? And one of them is, when the major parts of the swamp, in my opinion, well, there was like two kind of main families. One was the Khashoggi family in Saudi Arabia, um, and the other one was like the Bronfman family in Canada, right? And the whole Epstein mega group was all in Canada, and so a lot of the financial crime was happening through Canada and then coming into the U.S. And so Toronto, in a lot of ways, kind of controlled the U.S. And I mean, anyway, so there's lots there, but both those swamp creatures had been taken out actually, and I don't know. So we've been gaining momentum ever since. But so in that, I just bring that up because there's a lot of people that are like in the know, that like they're part of whatever group is doing this, and I don't know that it's necessarily has to be like some secret group or whatever. There's just kind of two sides. There's like the America First side, which I mean, some people would call it actually fascism, but, you know, and then there's the globalist side. And so any country that was like, no, like we believe it should be, we worry about ourselves first, not some like globalist bankers. All those people just happen to be on the same side because they're all against the central banks. And who is it that's like really the the people that are doing the whole counterfeit shares and everything? It's the central bankers, right? All of that, you know, is settled in the International Bank of Settlements in Switzerland, right? And we kind of been taught in school to like think about World War One, World War Two, and then you Cold War, and like we don't think like, oh wait, after World War Two, or actually in the middle of World War Two, this globalist group, out of Switzerland started using all the mafias. Literally, it's called the World Brotherhood, and it was started with Alan Dulles from RCIA, the French mafia, the Israeli mafia, the Italian mafia, right? They all got together and to work with the Swiss bankers to anyway. So from that. That's why they're the International Bank of Settlements. And then you see like from there, they start spreading like that system, right? They sold opium and whatnot to China, and then what do you know? They go over there and they help Japan kind of take portions of China, and then they establish a central bank in Japan, right? So we've been seeing like a long period of time of the growth of these central banks, and how they use this fiat currency um, to to rule, because they can pay for a war with fake money, right? They don't have to even have the gold. And um, owning the canals and everything is a big portion of it, because then they can force people to use their currency. Anyway, there's like a lot of stuff. All that to say is that there's a lot of people really pissed off at the central bankers for good reason. I don't know how they're exactly tied together. I don't know how they communicate. I have no idea. I'm just seeing a trend. There's probably someone even in this space call that knows a bajillion times more than me about it. I don't know. But I just bring that up to say that I don't know who this Montreal guy is, right? I think I have my guess, just kind of putting together some pieces. I don't even remember what guess I'd figured out, but it was basically some patriot billionaire guy from Canada. And in one of his tweets, he said he was a billionaire. And, you know, I think that I don't know, there's these movements, right? It's not a shock that we see like Elon Musk, supporting the MAGA movement in whatever the equivalent of the MAGA movement in Germany, right? Um, is and there's a reason why all the rhinos and all the Democrats went to Germany, right? Because that's their last chance to have the European Union, who's been in control of our country for a long time through these central banks, a last chance to kind of try and push back is my guess. But we can see that like how this system works, and the main key of fiat is that they have to have people have to believe that the money has value, right? And so they have to buy the propaganda machine, the media, and even pay all these social groups to look like grassroots groups, even though they're totally not grassroots groups. You can look at like, anyway, there's lots of them, everything from theosophy.
Mike,
Go ahead.
Michael, you're gonna lose the crowd here. We get it. My question to you is that do you have any knowledge, any for a fact that this is going to take place in the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks? Because even though a lot of us, have made similar statements in the past, they never came to fruition. So some of the pushback from the MMTLP community is that if you don't have that knowledge, or you're not certain for fact, it could actually affect some of these people that are actually not only hurting financially, but they're just clinging to hope that something will take place in the next 3 weeks. So this was the pushback, that because I bring you into the spaces, I was getting a little pushback in the DMs, and of course I don't know if you've seen the Drew post, but he also pushed back on it too. And again, I agree with some of the stuff that Drew said on there, and I kind of when I called you and said, well, how do you know? Do you know this for a fact that this guy's a billionaire? Anybody could create an account on X and say that they're a billionaire. Sure, I could create a dummy account, but see, this is where the other side, the shills, really attack us, because if it doesn't come to fruition, then you're gonna get attacked. So this is why I'm asking the question: do you know? Do you have knowledge that this is going to take place in the next 3 weeks, or are we just going off of an account that you don't know who it
Right.
is?
So like I said in the post, I was responding to someone else to share that post to me. I was just saying, I was trying to give context to this post. That's why I said I don't know this person. I mean, some things they have said have correlated with you know, other sources of rumors that I do actually know, right? So, in that sense, it seems more than just some random guy, right? But I think that like as far as how things would happen, the reason I kind of brought the context is like there's a huge change in the whole world happening. And so seeing what Doge is doing in a matter of like a couple weeks, I just think that they went into USAID. I just think that when they get to the SEC, they're already in the SEC, or they're starting there. They got in the IRS, and I just think that basically they're going to take all the arms of the Federal Reserve, and then when they go for the Federal Reserve and FINRA and the DTC, right? I think that you guys will be benefited. I mean, it makes sense. So I'm just saying that what that guy said lines up with everything that I see happening. And I think that it's like you guys will be you are the perfect case to show the crime. Um, and so it's a win-win, right? They get to take down FINRA and the Federal Reserve, and you guys also win because then you guys get paid, right? So I'm just saying that it's not like I don't directly know that person, but I just it seems it seems like things are headed that direction.
Yeah, and Michael, I agree with you. There is a trend with Doge, infiltrating these institutions, right, and auditing them. And I have no doubt that next in line would be SEC. Now, I don't know the conflict of interest in there with Elon Musk, because he holds Tesla stock, but nevertheless, there is a trend with Doge infiltrating these you know like the Treasury, and hopefully the regulatory bodies are next. I do agree with you that MMTLP is the tip of the spear. The reason why is because we had high level talks. I'll leave it there, and the people that are in the space that I know that are having those talks, whenever they're ready, they could come and address the community. So I know that the executive branch is aware, and it's multiple people in the current executive branch that are and the incoming are aware about our situation, but to your credit, or whoever this Montreal, I did get a text yesterday. I'm not going to name the person, but there's somebody that is from this community. He doesn't take the mic often, and he did mention something is coming. But I also push back on that person, right? My old self would have been excited or posted and say, hey, something's coming, but you live and you learn. And that's how we learn from our past mistakes. So I kind of push back. And how do you know this? He says that RFK he knows well, no fucking shit. He knows about it because the great work from Ian Carroll, Peruvian Bull, Savvy, Curtis, and myself. We've gotten meetings with his team. So yes, there's no secret. Kennedy knows about not only what's going on with GME. He's a GME holder. He knows about AMC because the gentleman that was at that meeting, he one of his staff members. He holds AMC, and of course he had a big dose of MMTOP, thanks to Curtis and Savvy, and some to his credit, Ian Carroll, and myself, speaking directly to Mr. Kenny. So Mr. Kenny knows about us. That's one. You got JD Vance that knows about us. That's two. And then you have, Pam Bondi, and you have Cash Patel, that dealt with Devin Nunes, and we can't forget Devin Nunes. He knows about it. So, again, going back, 100%, the executive branch knows about MMTOP and knows what's going on here. Now you have another person who has joined our spaces, knows me personally, knows you personally, and got to know many other community members down in Florida, which is Pool T. So I have no doubt that when it comes to trying to fix the market, many of these takers are going to be front and center because they're up to speed. And thanks for the many community members who actually are doing the God's work here and actually brought them up to speed that they know about our situation. And for that, I can't thank enough the community and all the tickers that took place to try to educate congressional members, Senate, but now MMTLP, along with yourself and Pool T and Devin Nunes educating the executive branch members of what's really taking place here. So I'll throw it back at you. So I do agree that they know about the situation, but I have to disagree with you in regards that there is something coming. If there is, I don't know about it. So I'm just letting everybody know about now. And if there's some other community members that are having these high level talks and they know, well, they staying tight lipped, and I haven't heard anything about it. So go ahead.
I mean, for me, I've kind of been trying to put together all the pieces. I mean, you guys have been here a lot longer than me. I mean, I barely even got into investing. MMTLP was one of the first things I remember even seeing when I was on r/slash short squeeze, and I was like, I literally actually was going to buy some, but my money was tied up in something else. But um, anyway, like I've been trying to put together the pieces. I remember when Pulte first came into the Bed Bath community, and I could just tell he had a different mentality, right? Like he was a builder, not just like that he does home building, but like there's just these like people that are just trying to suck money out of things, and then there's people that want to actually build a better world and build up people. And so he was like building us up, right? He had nothing to gain from us, right? Like he totally lost money. And anyway, like it was just like he wanted, but he was part of that whole movement of like, we are the media now, right? And so it's like, you know, I started to just try and put together to see who was all connected and how long they've been connected for. And it's just like it's just a huge picture. And, of what I thought they were doing, it took a little bit longer than I thought it was gonna be, just a little bit. But it ends up being a lot bigger than I thought they were even gonna do. It was like, wow, this is actually like way better than I imagined. And so I I do think it's all happening. I mean, I'm I think that the people on the other side of the trade, um, you know, are going to have maybe one last, push to try and push back. And I hope it's not something absolutely insane. I mean, like, something from Europe, and I don't know. I mean, there we could see something crazy happened, but in my opinion, I think it's all happening according to plan, and I think that this was planned a long time ago. For example, the Bed Bath thing that started in 2014, right? So when people talk about Bed Bath, if they're trying to tell you what the story is, no, if they don't start at least in 2014, they have no idea what they're talking about, because that's when the crime happened, and that's when people were like, hey, like, we have to stop JP Morgan and Amazon, who are going to just counterfeit this into the ground. And so, they started building, like, getting ready for it. But part of that whole scheme was they had to get all these, they had to load it up with as much debt and get all these properties, and then they had to offload it all onto retail shareholders. And so they needed, Jim Cramer on Mad Money to convince people. He's like, hey, they're going to do all these buybacks, like, you all need to, because the institutions are all part of this, right? So they couldn't just offload it on the institutions, because that'd be pointless, right? They had to have this shift towards retail. It's like, yeah,
Michael,
go ahead.
you're preaching to the choir. We know all this. I mean, we stressed it over the years. I think the community is educated on that part
But
of
the
what's
reason I
going on.
bring that up
Cares
is because what I'm saying is, I think your guys' play, like, I think that they knew that was coming, that there was, the good guys knew that was coming and knew it was going to happen, and they were ready for it. So, like, I that's why I'm just saying is, like, all these things are actually tied together, and there's, like, the accountability side is has it
right.
under control for longer than
And
we think, is what I was saying.
my and I cannot disagree with you. Uh, every, for example, GameStop, BBBY, BBBIG, you name it, MMTLP. We all have done tremendous work trying to express our feelings towards the right people. If it's Congress, Senator, again, I'm going to home back at the executive branch. We done our part. My whole, I guess I would say, my whole concern is that I put an example, Pool T. He understands and knows about our situation. He's been on our spaces. He understands and knows what's going on with GME. Yes, does he have political contacts? Does he probably speak to Ryan Cohen? We've seen him with the president. What is he going to do? That's the question now. Because if he has spent so much time, again, the gathering that we had in Florida, I thank him for that. It was successful in our part because we got to meet some impressive people, and some of the community members made some extraordinary connections there. So I thank him for that. But I sure hope that with all that hard work and all that passion that he showed to the many communities, if he were to leave these community members hanging dry, that's why I think that a lot of the communities, not only MMTLP, would draw the line, because we are clinging to hope that somebody like Pool T, with those connections and understanding what's going on here with MMTLP, he would actually act upon those concerns that retail investors have. You see where I'm going with that? Go ahead, Curtis. Go ahead, Michael, and then Curtis.
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, like, especially while he's being confirmed. So it's like, right now, you know, do the good guys have the complete upper hand? And it's like, they don't. They're going to have the upper hand, and they're getting there. So it's like, you know, that are, it, if there's this, tens of billions of dollar settlement that's going to happen with MMTLP, which I think is likely, you know, those people aren't going to want to give up that money, right? So it's like, I just think that it's like, there's certain things that have to happen. Cash Patel has to be in the FBI, because the FBI has to literally go in there and be like, write the check, right? Otherwise, they're not going to do it. They'd rather die than do it, right? So I just think that, Pulte's not confirmed, right? There's all these other deals that have to be, dealt with, right? I mean, our country is technically still, like, we're kind of at war with Russia right now, right? So, we have to settle that. That's being settled in Saudi Arabia, where, Trump's going to meet with Putin, right? So once certain of those things like happen, well, then we have the complete upper hand. But until then, we can't risk giving them any excuse to um, stop the thing, stop parts of the plan. Like if Pulte tried to do something right now, it could jeopardize him getting confirmed, and who knows? Then it's just yeah.
No, and Mike, I agree because I had the same pushback with Mr. Kennedy. When I text him to post something, he says I can't post anything until I get confirmed. So I get what Pulte is going through right now, and it's funny because you're stuck in the same situation, right, with Pulte. But the thing is that I don't want to leave my community, right, MNTLP, hanging dry where all these promises that are being made. Some may come to fruition, some may not. But the simple fact that Pulte understands what's going on with GME, BBY, and MMTLP. Mr. Kennedy knows what's going on with MMTLP, GameStop, right? And AMC. It will be disappointing for them not to act. I understand it's going to take time. I understand that there's other concerns that take priority over retail shareholders at the moment. But if Elon Musk and Dodge are going to infiltrate, the SEC, I mean, for God's sakes, the president himself has been affected by the naked shorting. Don't take it from me. Take it for Devin Nunes. How about Elon Musk? Don't take it from me. Take it for
and
Elon
and
Musk.
that's why I say it's been happening a lot longer, right? What two companies got naked shorted in 2004? It was Trump and it was Overstock, right? Oh, and what do you know? Overstock then creates T0, and T0 is finally gonna, use their special broker dealer stuff. So like the thing is that like I think that all of this started in 2004, and so it's like it's happening. Whether or not anyone likes me or Pulte or Trump or anyone, it doesn't even matter. Like if they have MMTLP shares, they can hate everyone in the universe. They're probably gonna get a fat settlement. It doesn't matter. So I mean, for me, I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. I was just merely like, I've been really excited about the Doge thing. I saw the rumor circulating. I'm like, well, I have to at least admit it does line up with other things I'm seeing, but I don't know for sure. Um, you know, so that's just the context I brought it in, is just,
Okay,
yeah,
so just to reiterate, you don't have any inside knowledge that something's coming
right.
in 3 weeks. You're just expressing your opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to Curtis, and then I know that 100 and positive have your hands up, but let's go to Curtis.
Hey, sorry, I walked away briefly. I'm having to multitask, but Michael, I just wanted to comment. I know Pulte has to go completely dark right now, prior to the confirmation process. And I think probably the first time that we'll hear him speak is going to be during his Senate confirmation hearing. Do you? We've not talked about this, but do you have any inclination? Have you even? I'm assuming you have, but have you looked into the prior manipulation of Fannie and Freddie specifically?
I that's fine. That's good you bring it up. I was gonna look into that. I'm like, I mean, it's got to be massive. But yeah, no, I would actually like to talk about that. And go into that if I'm sure you know a lot.
I do. I do. But it's just very interesting, and it's not something, admittedly, that I foresaw coming up until his name was dropped. Obviously, it was floated, or at least the rumor mill was floated that he was up for Secretary of HUD. And when Scott Turner was announced as the Secretary of HUD nominee, I was honestly a little disappointed, but I'm like, it's fine. Even his name be getting kind of floated out there was exciting. But then later, when his name was dropped in January for FHFA director, and knowing the role that the FHFA director has of essentially governing that conservatorship of Fannie and Freddie, and the whole again root cause of Fannie and Freddie being under government conservatorship was because they could not
The time
they
is
were
8
literally no
o'clock
different than
p.m.
every other micro cap in the last 2-3 years. They could not raise money, and because they were illegally naked shorted into the ground. And this community has become familiar because they've had to hear me force feed it down their ears for the last month. But it is a very prominent SEC emergency order that was administered on July 15th, 2008, where the SEC, directly from chairman at the time, Christopher Cox, issued an emergency order to prohibit further naked short selling of Fannie and Freddie securities. So it was so bad that it went from about $60, it was above $60, but about $60 all the way to the sub-dollar range in a matter of months. And we're talking about trillions of dollars, collectively over $4 trillion of assets at the time. And so it's very interesting when you then have this individual, right, that has for the last, I don't even know how many years, but probably for the last 3 years that Bill Pulte has been on my radar. Before, I just recognized him as obviously Pulte Home Group and Twitter philanthropy. So that's kind of how I knew of him, and I think a lot of people knew of him. But seeing him as an outspoken advocate and a retail investor advocate for some of these companies that have been manipulated, and then seeing his nomination for FHFA director, knowing that it was an executive director, a direction that was provided, executive memorandum from 2019 that Trump wanted to expedite and explore really Fannie and Freddie exiting government conservatorship and what that would do. And just kind of tying this back into what you did not say, Michael, which is interesting. So I didn't know how much you've looked into this or not. I just assumed that you had because of your relationship with Bill. But it is interesting because today the U.S. Treasury owns 80% warrants of both Fannie and Freddie, and they are senior preferred shares in both Fannie and Freddie. So and what happened is they were relegated to the OTC, which is the Wild West. So it is very interesting the parallels that exist between many securities that were on premium exchanges like the New York Stock Exchange and the Nasdaq, naked shorted to death, still exist, just on no longer a national securities exchange, instead on the OTC. And the interesting part of all of that to me is when I hear the rhetoric about, I'll just say it bluntly. I don't think I've ever said this bluntly, but I'll just say it very bluntly for this audience. Ken Griffin and Citadel are a risk to the U.S. Treasuries market. They teeter between number one and number two in volume, and it's been expressed that that Citadel and Ken specifically are liabilities to U.S. Treasuries, and simultaneously, China is obviously a major concern for this administration, should be. And you go back and you look at and this is why, if you haven't looked at this, Michael, I'm surprised that you haven't. I'll send you some stuff so you can get up to speed because this is right in your wheelhouse. Fannie and Freddie, at the time that the significant shorting started, the naked short selling that started, they had institutional lockup in the high 90 percentiles. So this isn't like a heavily retail investing, public driven locked up security. It's heavy institutional ownership. And what's interesting is at the time, because we're talking about 2007, 2008, during that time frame, you only had a few that were doing electronic quoting that were handling a majority of that volume. And when you look, it's really three entities that did all of it. And it is Citadel, who was still Citadel Derivatives at the time. You had Knight, which of course became Virtue. And you had Direct Edge, which at the time was owned by Goldman Sachs. And so it is interesting because all of that naked short selling, there's no fulfillment. There's no settlement that exists in that. I mean, it was relegated to the OTC, where they've traded in the sub-dollar range really since that point in time. And only since the election have each of the securities started to get movement, and they've had seismic level movements of 5-6x what they were trading at, starting literally the day after the election, November 6th. So I'll send you some stuff to look at, but I think when I put together the pieces in my head, right, and this is just my opinion, not based on any other knowledge, but just based on my opinion and knowing what Pulte's role has been in advocating for transparency and advocating against market manipulation practices, knowing what he's done with the GameStop communities, with Bed Bath and Beyond, right? What he has highlighted, it's just very interesting / convenient that he would take over some of the most valuable interests that exist uh, in the United States, the majority of U.S. housing market, and oh yeah, they're the two best examples of an extremely valuable asset. Uh, the underbelly and basically call it the foundation of the U.S. economy, and they were naked short sold into the ground and had to remain under government conservatorship since 2008. And now he gets to take over and really oversee the exit of that government conservatorship, work with US Treasury and Scott Bessent, and what that process would likely entail is obviously some kind of divestiture out of that 80% that they own, that the US Treasury owns of each entity, Fannie and Freddie. But that also means that the accounting is going to become highly scrutinized, right? That whole divestiture process. And I don't know. I read a lot of subtext with what's happened thus far. The American Sovereign Wealth Fund being created and potentially retaining some of that seems logical. But I just wonder, if you haven't read into that, I'll send you some stuff that will probably pique your interest. And if you have read into it, I think it'd be interesting to hear your opinions thereafter.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, that also just kind of gives the context really well of what I'm seeing the trend is. I'm just not Curtis, so I can't say it like he does. That's why I'm just a Curtis fanboy, not Curtis himself. But yeah, no, I think you're totally right, and I think that's like, it's funny that, in the, maybe even more so in the Bed Bath community, because I don't know how you guys are, but like, we're always like, yeah, we're gonna take down the financial system, and then we say that really like lightheartedly, as if it's like no big deal. It's like, well, if you take down the financial system through MOAS, and then there's just not a financial system to, your money is then worthless, right? But it really is going to wreck it, right? I mean, let's just say, I think Bed Bath, I think there's a $12 billion settlement, that's coming kind of from various sources. We'll see if that, turns out to be true. There's a $12 billion settlement, right? And let's say that that Montreal guy's right, and your guys is 4x that, right? Yours is like 48 billion. Okay, well, the government could bail that out, but is the government just going to bail out like they did in 2008, or are they going to make those companies go bankrupt, right? But those companies, like you said, Curtis, they have ways of kind of getting back, and because they control the treasury market, and they could just naked short, they could do a lot of things. And so it's like, it has to happen fast, and the whole system has to be kind of hot swapped. And I think that they're I don't want to say like getting ready to squeeze the pimple, but like, I mean, they're getting the pressure where it needs to be, so that can happen. And we've seen how, I mean, even, I don't want to go back to the media, but the USAID really had to go first. Like, that had to be cleaned out first, because, I mean, it's not normal. I guarantee they don't make money, by making hit pieces about MMTLP, right? Making whole videos about it, right? They don't make money doing that, because there's not an audience for it. They do it because they're covering up a crime, and they have to, right? So anyways, USAID was the one who fueling that whole propaganda machine. And so anyway, I think that they're getting ready to do that hot swap, and Citadel and Virtu are definitely part of it. And I mean, just even the Virtu part, right? They got their start through JP Morgan doing market making for US Treasuries. That was the bulk of their business, and they did it for JP Morgan. Well, JP Morgan, the reason I think there's a $12 billion claim is they did $12 billion worth of share buybacks for Bed Bath and Beyond, and they never actually bought them back, right? And so, right, like it's like, anyway, like and then what do you know? Epstein's bank was JP Morgan, all this stuff. So everything keeps coming back to JP Morgan. They're a member bank at the Federal Reserve. They're a trustee or whatever at FINRA and at the DTCC, right? So we're seeing what's going to be happening. You know, this RICO. It's pretty easy to spot. 100 and I went through actually even the JP Morgan and the alternative trading system and that spot. I mean, there's so many ways that JP Morgan and the big banks, all the member banks of the Federal Reserve, are the culprits of this massive RICO. But they have to hot swap it because, like you said, they have control over our housing market, over our treasury market, and we can't just let those things collapse. And so I think that you're right. It is really important that Pulte's there. And, you know, I'm really excited. I mean, I think Pulte is very close. I went to Mar-a-Lago with him. Trump and Elon weren't there because they were in like France or whatever at the time. But, you know, I mean, I think he's pretty close to them right now, both of them. And, you know, Trump was attacked in 2004 with naked short selling. Elon was attacked in whatever year that was, 2009, 10, I don't know. But, you know, it's they're getting ready to hot swap it, and they look like they're executing the plan perfectly.
Thank you, Michael. 100. You're on next, and then positive. Go ahead, 100. Danny, can
I
you hear
can't
me?
hear him.
Danny, can you drop down and come right back real quick?
Hey, Michael, they really don't like us talking about this, so we should probably just never talk about this.
Yeah, seriously.
I don't know who they is, but they definitely don't like us talking about this. Just letting you know.
And they don't like us coming together, right? Like that's the thing. Like that raccoon chick. Like I don't even know who that is, right? She's not like specifically aimed at Bed Bath. You know, we have our specific shills, but I think that they know, and I think that's the important part is like when this hot swap happens and this wealth transfer happens, right? They um they don't want us explaining to all the regular people why it had to happen. Because like, wait, why did JP Morgan stock just go down like 25% in a day or 50% in a day? It's like, well, they created they did several massive crimes for a long time, right? Like they'll be angry, right? It's going to affect people's 401ks, and it's like, yeah, but like, I mean, we had to address it at some point. So they don't like the fact that all of us are aware and can explain to others and are helping them become aware of why this huge sacrifice to make a course correction was necessary. And so that's why they attack us. And that's why they like especially hate when we come together. And that's why Pulte through the event is he wanted us to be able to trust each other, right? Because there's no shill that could, I mean, come in and try and convince me, you know, of the people I've met that they're not good people, right? I met Busy, I met Curtis, I met 100 all in person. They're all just as genuine or more than I thought they were. So I think that that's why he had the event is it's like he wanted that armor against the gaslighting and the manipulation because it really is hard. Like we're not CIA people. We're not trained for psyops or to withstand them. We're not, you know, a lot of us haven't been in the finance world for a really long time. And so if someone can just come in and say something and we don't immediately feel super confident to reject it, right? So, you know, that's why Pulte was like, yeah, build these connections with people that are genuine, people you trust, right? I mean, the whole event, he's like, dude, I want it to be community driven. Just, he's like, don't even bring me up, right? He's like, just you pick who you want. And I was like, well, I want Curtis, right? um, so anyway, like that's powerful because that's real, right? What we're up against, those people, the connections that they have is not real. They're only connected by a love of money. And as soon as someone's not worth it to them, they'll screw them over. And that's what we're about ready to see is all these people that they already lost. The Andrew Leffs, the Citron Research, you know, the Ghislaine Maxwell that's in prison right now. They're going to be singing like a bird because it's like, well, you know, I'm hung out to dry and so I'm not going to keep covering for these people that aren't saving me, right? And we're just going to see massive, you know, all the shills turn on each other, right? So, you know, we have the benefit of figuring out who we trust, and you know, it's been rough, but for what's going in,
No, I
yeah,
get it, Michael. All the groundwork has been laid, right? I just don't want to be disappointed at the end
yeah,
when they get into that position of power. What are you going to do now? I'm not saying right away because, of course, there's plenty of stuff on the books that they need to get uh, that takes priority over some of. I mean, we're affected. We think that this is priority to us. Um, that's just not the way it works. But at some point, we just hope that we're not disappointed because we spend a lot of time making these friendships, these connections, and now that we have these friendships and connections in power, we would like to see some kind of result, right, come out about it. So that's just what I'm saying, and hopefully I don't get disappointed with Pulte. I still have faith that he really cares, and he hasn't shown me that he doesn't, right? And same thing with Mr. Kennedy. So let's just cross our fingers that they come to the rescue for retail investors and do something for us that are being affected. With that being said, let's go to 100. You're there now. You're
Yeah,
good.
I hope so.
Perfect. We can do.
um, damn, there was a lot of things that was discussed, and most of it was covered. So I'm not gonna reiterate pieces of this. The only thing I'm gonna say is two things. One, Michael, when you make public statements, and God bless you, because you know I love you, brother. Um, when you make public statements and you put price points in your posts, even though your intentions are great, they're always going to be used against you. It's going to stir up a lot of drama. So just try to avoid doing it.
oh,
I
that's
don't,
true.
I
Yeah.
don't want, yeah, I don't want anything that you say or put out to the world to be devalued because um, you 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 are an instrument of um, of greatness in this battle. So just want to make sure that you're good. Okay. Then the other thing is um, another thing that you and Curtis were talking about in regards to the years. Um, 2004 was the latest that you brought up, but Direct Edge actually um, was something called Attain. It was an ECN created in 1998. And when Citadel and Knight were dominating the OTC market, it was from the very beginning of the 1990s. So by the turn of 2001 to 2002, a lot of the suspicion and criminal activity had already spiked up and was known on a governmental level. And that this is the reason why 2002, the Department of Homeland Security was involved with the Pentagon, the U.S. Treasury, and the Secret Service to do investigative work on what we're talking about today. So the things that you started to see in 2004 and what Elon started to experience years later, as well as Overstock, these were just after effects that were involving, you know, a massive amount of government activity trying to figure out what's what. And then, you know, then in around 2012 to 2014, the Supreme Court arguments started to form. And then here we go with a game situation in 2020, right? So there was process. It has been going on for a long time. Um,
You're breaking up. Can anybody hear him?
No, he glitched out. Dang it.
Go positive. It's your chance. You better hurry up.
Hey guys, how's it going? I want to go back to the Canada thing. So, as everybody knows, Trump wants to make Canada the 51st state. And if you look at the last meeting that we had with Justin Trudeau, Justin Trudeau promised 10,000 troops to be brought out to defend the border. We don't have 10,000 troops. Right after that meeting, Justin Trudeau leaves. He went to Europe somewhere. He hasn't been back since. As you know, our government's in prorogue, which means our government's not in place right now. And then with the TD Bank funneling billions of dollars, like laundering billions of dollars through, I think Trump knows exactly what's going on here. So I was just putting all the points together. And when he said billionaires, Canadian billionaires, there's been a couple Canadian billionaires that are planning on leaving. And it's been in the news in the past couple days. They're leaving Canada. So all the pieces seem to fit towards that too. It's pretty crazy now that you
Yeah.
said that.
Yeah, and Trump said the most gangster thing. He's like, "Hey, Canada, like, there's a lot of countries with like, battleships out here, like China and like, Russia. Like, it'd be like a shame if you didn't have any protection."
Yeah.
I
He
was like, "Oh,
knows.
dang."
He knows with the organized crime and everything in Canada, like it's bad, man. Like the crime here is so bad that homes are being invaded, cars are being stolen. Look at the map on the crime that's going on in individual cities. The map is loaded with pins. It's insane. And basically you can do whatever you want here in Canada and you don't get in trouble. So what do you think is going to happen? And it seems like Trump knows exactly what's going on. And when he had that meeting with Justin, he knows that Justin's full of shit. And Justin took off. He never came back. He's still in Europe somewhere.
That's so crazy. Yeah,
Welcome to Canada. I
I don't
see
know exact.
Marduk down there.
Yeah. I don't know how it's going to shake out, but whether it be an official 51 first state or whether it just be like a no limits partnership thing, or I'm not really sure, but it really, there was a lot of financial crime through there. I mean, the TD Bank alone, they were funneling money for the, what was it, the Aguas cartel in Venezuela or whatever. So it's like that was, supposedly trillions of dollars worth
Yeah,
of
well, don't forget, they might just be blaming it on the Mexican cartels and not telling us the full truth.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I just think they're all connected, right? I mean it's
yeah,
like
they're not blaming it on the cartels. They're involved because you can trace the activity back to shells and the phone numbers and business entities that they use. It's all connected. They're
Yeah.
just part of it.
Like if you watch the way Trump talks about this, he talks like he's looking at the camera like he goes, "Don't worry, I know what's going on." That's what I'm like. There's a lot of people panicking over here in Canada over this, and nobody really sits back and thinks about what's actually going on. Like with the fentanyl crisis that are all coming through Canada here, it's killing hundreds of thousands of people, and like Justin Trudeau is letting it happen. Like there's clinics here. If you want drugs, you could just go get it in a walk-in clinic. Like I mean hard drugs like cocaine and fentanyl and Molly, whatever you want. There's safe, they're called safe places where you can go get safe drugs from the government. And there's actually companies that are working for our government that make this kind of drug just to sell or give it away on taxpayers' dollars in these clinics.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it's wild.
Give me
Welcome to
give me a
Canada.
second, Mike. Listen, what he was talking about in regards to the housing sell-off happening in DC, I put it up on the nest. And Curtis, do you want to chime in on that? Because I haven't even spoken to you about it, but I put it on the nest. That shit is wild. Coming soon. Did you see all those
About
houses that
what?
are
Oh,
coming
we're talking
into?
about in DC, the mass exodus.
Holy cow! I mean, that is just
Yeah, you cut
nuts.
off the financial arm, and yeah, you might need to quickly offload some assets.
Yeah, don't forget what Elon's been doing. He made public statements about, and the president, discussing that they would let go of government properties and put them on the market too. So it's not just people that work there, but it's actually real government properties being let go.
I mean, if you want to talk about something in signaling, I don't think that there's any better. First of all, we've danced around it. Now I think it's time to just embrace it after the bill was introduced last week to expedite the government reorganization and to expedite it, really to turn it into what normally would be probably like a 4-year plan and put it in a 100-day plan, and it's I think described in a 90-day plan, which is crazy if we did not just experience the first 3 weeks of this administration at breakneck speed. But that legislation is really to expedite, and that government reorganization is Project 2025, and covered in Project 2025 are subjects like financial regulatory agencies and abolishing FINRA and the PCAOB, which might be of interest to you, Michael. The PCAOB, all of the auditors that are absolutely part of the embedded cartel, um, but also abolishing FINRA and folding those responsibilities back into the SEC. And in addition, I don't know if anyone's seen the headlines yet, but the Consumer uh, Protection, or the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, absolutely on hold, on pause right now. And Russell Vogt is now acting as interim director there, and gutting Elizabeth Warren's personal little regulatory agency that came out of Dodd-Frank, which is interesting. So all these things are being expedited right now. Also, the exit of government conservatorship of Fannie or Freddie. Go ahead and throw that one in there. That one's also listed under the Treasury section. But again, I think the biggest tell of all these things, and they are all happening so very quickly, that it's hard to keep up. But the biggest tell last week, late last week, Thursday, Friday, was the House Financial Services Committee Democrats writing that letter, Brad Sherman, Maxine Waters, to the SEC, expressing their deepest concerns about Doge pulling back the curtain on the SEC. And again, um, when you're uncovering fraud, those that are yelling to stop are the ones that you can go ahead, and it's safe to assume that they're the ones that are committing fraud. I don't know why anyone would not want to review the SEC with a fine tooth comb, because we know how it has been politicized, and we've experienced it. We have experienced it, regardless of what investment you have. I think everybody has learned, whether you knew it going into it or not, that the SEC is there to protect market stability and in no way, shape, or form protect market integrity. If they so align, then sure, market integrity and stability, they'll protect both. But if they ever diverge, then market stability over market integrity all day, every day. It should be a banner outside of the SEC's home office. We're here to protect market stability, fuck market integrity, because that's basically how they treat the regulatory oversight. But um, that is a very, very big tell. That letter, in anticipation of Doge, which, when you listen to all of the talking heads and those that are closest to Donald Trump and Elon, when they talk about what set off the alarms and why they needed to prioritize USAID first and foremost, it's because on the day one executive orders that were signed, I think it's 21, maybe. I don't remember the exact count, but on the day one inauguration day executive orders that were being signed, one of them was to halt payments to any kind of foreign aid, and the largest of which was, of course, centered around USAID, and they did not stop payments. And so when they immediately disregarded an executive order, they got the microscope shoved up their ass, metaphorically and immediately. And if this and the behavior around, if you want to just go back to the last weeks of Gary Gensler's tenure and the announcement again of additional charges against Elon Musk, who was, a political adversary to uh, not just the San Francisco office of the SEC, but to Gary Gensler in general, and the SEC leadership over the last 4 years. They announced charges again regarding yet another thing with Elon Musk and not declaring his purchases of Twitter back when it was publicly traded timely within the required time frame. And so, he's been under SEC scrutiny the entire time, and he has been extremely outspoken. And the more outspoken he is, the more he has been attacked. And really, he is a great example of a victim of weaponization of government from the SEC specifically. So, anyway, when you look at all those things, and then you see the letter from Brad Sherman and Maxine Waters, and I can't encourage everyone enough to read the language, the entirety of the language inside of that letter and what they're concerned about. There would be nobody that should be concerned about transparency around the SEC, because everyone knows um, what they hide and how they use Wells notices to weaponize and to threaten companies into submission. We've experienced firsthand um, both guidance from securities attorneys as well as from leaders, CEOs, CFOs from within publicly traded companies that have been told the formal guidance given by their securities litigators is to remain silent, because if you speak out on market manipulation, then you will be targeted by the SEC as a victim of market manipulation. If you speak out, you in turn will be targeted by the SEC, which is absolutely crazy. It's like, calling 911 for, somebody being broken into your house, and then, you getting arrested for it. It's absolutely insane. So um, it's obvious that the SEC is going to take priority, not just because following the same formula as defying a U.S. Executive branch order day one. It also was included, and it was the second agency listed in the basically the executive order to end the weaponization of government. In order, they were Department of Justice, and second was the Securities and Exchange Commission. So believe that it's coming. It's absolutely coming, and it is a top priority for this administration. And if you don't see the concern from people that might have been benefactors from the manipulation, then I will refer you back to Maxine Waters and Brad Sherman's letter to the SEC, pleading them not to abide by Doge oversight.
Well, Curtis, but that's being said, I actually posted that letter on the Nest. But also, yes, I agree with you. There is concern because I also posted on the Nest a post by some guy named Truth Seeker, and it shows the top Google searches in DC. Number one, searching for lawyers jumped up 400% starting December 1st. Searching for Swiss banks accounts and offshore accounts and wire transfers. Number three, searching how to wipe Google searches from history. Searching for statute of limitations starting January 25th. So it's really interesting. And also, he posted there the housing. There's 516 new listing in the last 24 hours. I mean, talk about panic in
Oh yeah,
DC.
Curtis, and people being debanked, but being debanked was not a thing. Now we do know it. It is a thing.
So I guess my question to you, Curtis, is: do you see, or anybody at the panel, do you see them going and freezing and confiscating the assets? For example, I know in the space earlier we were talking about how these politicians are getting paid 150, 170, 200,000 a year, but yet they have 200, they gained their wealth by 200 million, 40 million,
Yeah.
60 million, whatever. I mean, do you see them confiscating and taking back these?
So funny because I had a conversation with someone today, earlier today about just that, and I don't know yet. My everybody has to make their own assessment of situations with the facts at hand. But here's what has happened. What has happened is you have many people, including Elon Musk, noting that you have people that they have to make when these federally elected officials come into office, they have to file a financial disclosure statement. So they know going into elected office how much the net worth is of each individual and where their assets lie, and they have to go through that because the goal, right? And I don't know how genuine it is or not when you look at some of the things that have happened, but the stated goal is to ensure that you don't have conflicts of interest, and especially foreign conflicts of interest, right? You don't want to have people uh, interfering with any level of branch of government with financial conflicts of interest. So they have to file these statements, and many come in already with a substantial net worth, but some come in with a moderate net worth and come out. Whether they make $174,000 a year, or they make $224,000 a year, which is a good salary, but not a salary that you can amass amount of wealth of tens of millions of dollars in a short time frame. And so the scrutiny around that is just very logical, right? And Elon Musk has acknowledged that, and so at minimum, they're trying to put the awareness there for the public, for the general public that might not put two and two together. I find it rather interesting. The U.S. is big sports based, big sports fandom. Like we love our sports in the U.S. and everyone knows that you would not let a professional athlete or even a collegiate athlete bet on the games that they're participating in or even in their league. It's prohibited. My neighbor, my neighbor is well, I'm not going to dox. He holds a very, 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 very high position in the NCAA, and he is prohibited for betting on any platform at all. Period. He can't even bet $1 because of potential conflicts of interest, right? And I mean, even on professional, he's on the collegiate level, very high up, but he can't bet on any sports. And it's interesting that we don't take that same logic and apply it to our elected officials who can absolutely uh, be privy to inside information before any of us, the general investing public. They can have direct influence over contracts and government procurement, and yet they get to amass their wealth and their investments. And obviously, that has become I think there's a general awareness around that now more so than there ever was, thanks to accounts like unusual whales and what is it, Quiver Quantitative. Like there's a lot of I mean, there's Nancy Pelosi stock trackers now, right? But it's interesting. I think there's going to be scrutiny there, but you have to ask yourself, what is the intent? And I don't know if the intent is to deter them from continuing their acts of corruption, or if the intention is to actually prosecute any kind of potential wrongdoing. And here's why I think it's actually the former, is because I don't, unless you're naive, if you're naive and you think, and I'm not so red-blooded conservative that I think that that there's not corruption on both sides. I have experienced and witnessed firsthand that there is corruption on both sides, right? And if you aren't a believer in that, then I don't think you have your eyes open, and I think you're probably operating with complete bias. So I don't think personally, this is just my opinion, it's based just upon my independent observations, but I think that it's a kind of warning shot to deter the behavior and not to potentially prosecute en masse, because it is important that the that the conservatives remain as unified as possible to get the remaining nominees confirmed. And I'm just guessing that there are probably some on the Republican side of the House that are also concerned about how they have amassed their wealth while serving as federally elected officials. So I'm just assuming. I'm going to say the odds are there's absolutely, of the 535 federally elected officials in the legislative branch, that there's absolutely corruption on both sides that exists. It's just logical. But that's my 2 cents. I just think they're trying to deter it and have people open their eyes and become not desensitized, but just aware that, hey, corruption exists across the board. We're here to curb it. We're here to get the financial expenditures back in line so we don't bankrupt the country. And this is part of it, is cutting the unnecessary spending, the waste, and most importantly, the fraud.
My bet for why Maxine Waters was one of the ones particularly that didn't want the SEC to be investigated is because her husband was the ambassador to the Bahamas right when Clinton was setting up the carbon credit trading. And so it's really fascinating. I mean, we know that's a huge money laundering scheme because you have to take money from the public, right? You socialize the risk and you privatize the profits, right? So they take a company like Bed Bath and Beyond. They're like, oh, I think all their shareholders want to, buy some carbon credits. And so then they're like, okay, well, we're going to buy them from the Bahamas because they're this. I mean, as of 2022, they were the central or the center of the carbon credit trading. That's why FTX was there, and then they don't actually buy or invest those carbon credits. However, they're even saying they're going to. It just goes back into the politicians' pockets. And as I was looking at it, I just kind of noticed that they were like doing solar and green energy at like these Indian reservations, and it's like, that's also where the Iran Contra thing was. The guns from the Iran Contra were shipped from an Indian reservation because it's sovereign soil, like for the Indians, right? It's not under the jurisdiction of the U.S. So it's like, oh, what do you know that they're doing the same thing? They go from using all these inter-country trades that are less scrutinized, and then using protected territory in the U.S. that's not supervised. And I don't know. I think that's going to blow up. So that's my bet on my bingo card if anyone wants to put on theirs.
Well, you're telling me it all makes sense that Maxine Waters had her arm around Sam Bankman-Fried and didn't want to put him
And
on
blew him a
blast.
kiss, right? And helped him get less of a sentence, because at that point, when he got less of a sentence, I think they still thought that they could win, right? I mean, if I'm thinking about the timeline right, they almost literally killed the president.
It's a money laundering scheme. Same thing with Ukraine, my opinion. So I want to take it full circle because Curtis mentioned conflict of interest. So it's starting to make sense why Devin Nunes attached our open letter. He's seen that this is a ticker that was not trading, so he couldn't manipulate it if he would actually post anything or attach anything to his complaint. You figure that the president would actually do the same thing and try to stay away from doing anything with DJT. So somebody like MMTLP will be in the tip of the spear since you can't manipulate the ticker. Am I right or wrong, Curtis?
I think, well, I have reason to believe that he did not just find MMTLP organically. Like he just saw the movement or saw people complaining. I think it was brought to his attention that there are parallel situations that are and parallel bad actors, right? That are ultimately manipulating your security. Your the public publicly traded assets of your company, Mr. Devin Nunes, and they've also manipulated some of these other tickers, and this is one that you might have interest in because they actually escalated all the way to your old stomping grounds of Congress, right? And 74 signees of an open letter to Gary Gensler of the SEC and to Robert Cook of FINRA, and asking for just basic transparency, right? And so, but everything that he did thereafter, both at that point, prior to, in the initial letter to Adina Friedman, head of the NASDAQ, every single communication and what he asked for was an evolution. And I know it's not coincidental that he found MMTLP, but or that he included that letter. But I think, what it signals to me is uh, he has a desire to handle this through legislation inside of Congress, right? That he wants awareness, and that Congress this is this unique kind of learning curve that we've all gone through is, again, naturally, as we just get experience in all of this, and who the manipulators are, and who are good cops, who are bad cops. I just explain it this way because it is the truth as seen through my eyes. When December 9th, 2022 happened and we were U3 halted in MMTLP, the first thing that all of us did, all of us that knew to do this, was some of us escalated directly to our broker dealers, just as your first customer service point of contact. But others reached out directly to the regulators, both FINRA and the SEC. And after getting really thrown around in circles and not being provided any level of transparency, and just being told that everything's fine and everything's going according to plan, we quickly realized over the next 45 days that they were not being transparent. They were being intentionally opaque. And eventually, we realized that they were facilitating exactly what had happened. There were indications of that earlier on, but that was really solidified over time. And I don't know, like who holds. I literally have this conversation in congressional meetings. I mean, those of you that have participated in those meetings know that this is literally the education cycle that you go through with some of these representatives, senators, and staff, depending on their familiarity with market mechanics. It's okay. What's FINRA's role? Like, what does FINRA do? Oh, well, FINRA has been granted regulatory immunity that was granted by you, Congress. And so they get to operate as a self-regulatory organization, also an NGO. They're a non-governmental entity as well. They get to hold their member firms accountable. Oh, they're the same member firms that fund them, that fund FINRA. FINRA does not receive their funding from the government. They receive their funding from their members that they're supposed to police. Okay. Now the rep or the staff is tracking with you. Okay, so who regulates FINRA? Oh, well, I'm glad you asked. That's supposed to be the Securities and Exchange Commission. Reference Gary Gensler's testimony in the Senate Banking Committee or his responses, where he basically defers to, no, this is FINRA's deal, right? This FINRA makes that decision. They do not reach out to us when issuing a U3 halt, which is true. What they do is they do reach out to the SEC when there's suspicion of fraud, which came to light in FOIAs, and they do have a hand and can supersede FINRA. Absolutely, they have that authority, but they didn't at any given point. And so then the question becomes, who holds the SEC accountable? And hence why we have been dead set focused on Congress, because Congress controls the purse strings, and they can of the SEC. That's who controls appropriations for the SEC, is Congress. And Congress potentially has the oversight to force the SEC and any of their subordinates to be subpoenaed, to provide answers that they have to this point refused to provide. So that's why it's so important. And so going back, I know this is like the longest winded Curtis answer ever. So sorry, Busy. But to go back to Devin, right, and why it's so important, his letter and the formulaic like nature of his memos, they're all SEC 8Ks, right? Every single one of them, that letter is published in the SEC. In Edgar, and you can read them. And he's included very intentionally the head of the exchange that DJT is traded on, the NASDAQ. He started there. He has engaged and referenced all of the potential bodies that conducted in manipulation by name, not this anecdotal phantom reference of there could be entities that are manipulating our stock. No, he names them in a non-alphabetized order, okay? A very intentional order. He places these names on here. He includes, as part of all of these communications, 4 chairmen of very important, relevant congressional committees. They are Oversight Committee and James Comer within the House, Jim Jordan, chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Patrick McHenry, who was the chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, and Jason Smith of the Ways and Means Committee. So if you want to address the issue and you want to be able to touch every single aspect of that, and now you play forward with what we know now, with Trump fortunately being elected as president and basically conducting massive government overhaul in an expedited fashion, and Devin Nunes is now the chair of this independent intelligence advisory board to the president, and Scott Glabe, his general counsel from DJT, is also part of that independent intelligence advisory board, and Kash Patel served in a leadership position as well within DJT and now is about to be confirmed as the FBI director. Are you seeing all the pieces that are getting placed on the chessboard? There's massive overhaul that's coming, and if you think that it's limited to just lawfare that they're trying to undo and not literally the financial terrorism that's been conducted over the last not just 4 years, but in particular the last 4 years, that's exactly what they're trying to undo. So
And don't forget Pam Bondi, who sat on the board of DJT. I mean, if her CEO, of course, at that time with DJT, was going live on TV and explaining how the company is being destroyed via naked shorting, you don't think Pam Bondi was watching that?
so many of you have heard me say this, but I'll just put it out there again for those that might be new listeners or might not have caught onto this. Pam Bondi's got a brother that might have a vested interest in this as well. Pam Bondi's brother, and Pam Bondi was previously the Florida Attorney General, for those that might not be familiar with her political history. So very well qualified for this position. But her brother is known as one of the most prestigious white collar securities attorneys in the U.S. His name is Brad Bondi, Bondi, same last name. And Brad actually served for general counsel for the Special Purpose Acquisition Corp. That was Digital World Acquisition. That was the predecessor to DJT uplisting to the NASDAQ. Oh, that's interesting. I think he might have a relationship with the Trump family and the same company. Oh, and did you also know that Brad Bondi, the same Brad Bondi, also served as defense for Tesla and Elon Musk? Did you know that? How crazy is that?
Stop.
When Elon did his little Twitter spiel of saying that he had a private secured offer, and the SEC went after him for that, which was legitimate. He has reaffirmed that was a legitimate offer, but the SEC went after him for that. And General Counsel Brad Bondi. Oh, and just in case you didn't know, Brad Bondi worked in concert and as part of SEC General Counsel with, oh yeah, the SEC chair nominee, Paul Atkins. How about that? Who's about to be
Stop.
confirmed. He's about to be confirmed as the new SEC chair. How about them apples?
Stop it.
No, keep going. I'm almost there.
Hey, Michael, you're not in Ohio, right? That's going to be 10 grand.
No.
I want to give Curtis a break, and it's time I'm going to go to you, but just so people could understand what exactly is taking place here and what Curtis is alluding to, let me let you hear a minute and 50 seconds of Devin Nunes.
And if something gets a little out of whack for 1 or 2 or 3 days, but then if the system works properly, everything should be cleaned out quickly. But I think the problem is bigger. And maybe they got so greedy at targeting us that maybe, just maybe, we don't know, but maybe we're going to expose something that's going to be bigger than what most of us imagined. And I think there's probably been a lot of companies over the last decade or so or more that have been hurt by these same tactics. And so, you know, look, I'm hopeful that we're going to continue to work with our allies in Congress. We'll build the case. We'll inform the appropriate authorities. As you know, we've already talked to the NASDAQ. Seems to me like the RICO statute applies here. And that leads me to, you know, the other, you know, we're obviously going down the congressional route right now. But don't forget, there are a lot of states, state attorney generals that should have an interest in this. If, you know, how much damage has been done to capital formation of other smaller companies that have been hit by this naked short selling or counterfeit shares. My guess is it's going to be a large number. And look, we just might be the poster child. And if this happened to us, we're going to break it out into the open. We're going to make sure that people know about it, and we're going to continue to expose it. So working with Congress, working with other governmental authorities, and also going to work with the state attorney general. Have people.
Well, Mr. Devin Nunes. That doesn't get old.
Wow, that gets me really excited. I love that.
Go ahead, it's time.
Curtis, I just had a question here. I have a hard time keeping up with all this stuff. It's really confusing. But I stepped away from my phone when you were speaking, and I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. Is it true that Maxine Waters is not leading the charge on transparency in the SEC and the stock market?
It's both Maxine Waters and Brad Sherman. They definitely want transparency. Definitely. Wink, wink.
Okay, if they're not really looking for that, would you say Nancy Pelosi's leading that charge?
I think anyone that's had a hand in manipulation, specifically within the last 3-4 years, would be deeply concerned. But the SEC has been weaponized for far longer than the last administration. So I think everyone that that has been a benefactor of manipulation or again the weaponization and politicization of the SEC should be in fear.
Wow, with this information that I'm getting now, I don't know really what to say, but one thing that I do think, metaphorically speaking, it's hammer time.
So, Curtis, I have a question for
Just
you.
make
Curtis.
sure I don't have to put $10,000 in the Ohio jar, swimmer jar.
God, you're gonna make me put that up on this. So
Don't. If people don't know the reference, don't give them reference to most ridiculous legislation ever.
Right. Do you see an instance here that after this is all said and done with the Trump administration, that FINRA is abolished?
I think it's a certainty. I think it's I have. Do you hear any doubt in my voice? It's a certainty, and here's why. If I set like a floor of my expectations, obviously I'm very close to our situation, right? And how FINRA broke a multitude of rules, and for whose benefit? Like the whole guise of the U3 halt was to protect unknowing investors, right? That's what they published in writing. I don't know how many attorneys looked at that, and then you have
The
like
time
a
is
group of
9
retail
o'clock
investors pick
p.m.
it apart, and they have to issue an amendment in 24 hours and panic and write why they are amending it, and then they have to issue a supplemental FAQ. Glad to be part of that group, but I think that because they have broken the rules and who they're benefiting in breaking the rules, right? And they've shown a pattern of uh, just pennies on the dollar fines that don't actually deter the manipulation from occurring. And so what are you actually trying to do? You're not providing restitution for affected investors. You're not actually deterring the manipulation from occurring in the first place. And under your watch, not only has manipulation amplified, but now the capital formation process is affected. Fewer companies are seeking listing for public trading because it's a breeding ground for manipulation. So they have really defied their mission statement. And when the general public, I mean, I'm not in any way making a hyperbolic statement. Anybody that is having these conversations with members of Congress and or their staff, it's it is they have to fact check because they almost don't believe that FINRA is funded by their member firms and then expected simultaneously to police them, because that is a direct conflict of interest to their very existence. And so how could they possibly operate without a conflict of interest under those terms? And so at minimum, with that coupled with their regulatory immunity and the fact that they can't actually be held accountable civilly or criminally accountable, it's not been done to this point where they've been held accountable for their lack of regulatory oversight or for a regulatory decision that they've made. That's the problem. And so there are only a couple ways of fixing it, and the published reasoning from the Heritage Foundation senior economic policy advisor is to abolish them. That's what has been done or is being carried out with other organizations that are listed within that reform documentation. But there's only two ways of doing it. You either abolish the organization outright and absorb those regulatory responsibilities into the Securities and Exchange Commission, or you remove their regulatory immunity clause that was granted by Congress. And now I think once they have some disincentive of overseeing or facilitating fraud, once they can become financially liable, then I think, if you were to just hold them accountable for the issues related to MMTLP, they would become immediately insolvent. So they're abolished out of necessity anyway. So, I think it's a near certainty. They could delay it. It doesn't mean it could be one fell swoop. It might be done. It might be done in parallel with something else. But I absolutely could see as part of a transition period uh, a blueprint where you are transitioning specific oversight and functions and even resources, right? I'm not talking about all those people get fired, but they may transition under the SEC's purview. And the SEC absolutely has criminal and civil culpability that they are susceptible. Um, so I think it's a near certainty that it's going to happen with this administration. It's a matter of how
Also,
quickly it can happen.
also, I think it'll be kind of transition to blockchain and AI. I mean, you don't need a fallible person in the middle of it, right? Where, the critical part can have a conflict of interest, like code can't have a conflict of interest. And so I think that that's just what's going to happen is like, blockchain will, I mean, you can have contracts in there, right? If then, right? And it's in the AI actually is how, the judicial system is supposed to work, right? Like, is that a judge they're unbiased and they just are supposed to exercise the law, right? They just do what the precedent tells them. And then if there's like a hole in the law, well, then, that has to be then addressed, and then that adds to the precedent. So, AI should be able to do that. And then you have basically the code that gets written into there should be from the Senate, which are the elected officials. And that should be the process of how things happen. But it just doesn't make sense to have bias in all these places that can have such a conflict of interest. That's why you're supposed to have the judicial branch be apolitical, but it's just kind of impossible to have an apolitical branch.
So Curtis and I see JR took a mic. So obviously there's a concern here with an act of the U3 halt, right? They didn't want a market disruption. How do they fix the market if they know that all of this counterfeiting of shares? I mean, what does it look like? Are we talking about the Treasury will have to create some kind of bond and then slowly pay it over time? Are they just going to fix one or two tickers at a time? Like, what does it look? Because if you actually put the stock market on a blockchain, you heard me say this before, you'll have thousands of CEOs lining up suing the shit out of fucking, SEC, because then it will reveal how many shares are actually in a company. So I don't know who wants to take that question, but how does it look like? What does cleanup on aisle 9 look like?
I think 100 wants to answer that, but I think not to oversimplify it, but it starts with forcing the settlement that has never been forced en masse before. So that's it sounds like it's complicated to fix the issue, but you're talking about, and it's ironic, how we've come full circle on what is reasonable. As we were talking about oil and gas assets earlier with an oil and gas subject matter expert, um, I would be interested to know his opinion on what should happen on loans that are occurring from major financial institutions that are borrowing in excess of what should exist of securities that are being traded publicly and then never settled upon. And it's funny because I just heard him say that that's BS and that you're screwing the taxpayers, which is very funny because in that regard, we completely agree. Tom Slocum and I write it down. We completely agree. I think it's screwed up that taxpayers foot the bill for a lack of settlement on agreed upon obligations. That's what we're all pushing for. He doesn't even know it because, well, I'm not going to be disparaging, but he doesn't know it, but we're pushing for the same thing. We're pushing for settlement. If you agree upon something, if you are taking upon a loan, that's what we're talking about here with these uh, short sales that exist in excess of the shares that should even be circulating. But they should be fulfilled, and that goes for actively trading securities as well. And the whole reason that the merry-go-round persists is because there's never any force in settlement. They use credit default swaps and games to literally skirt any level of reporting requirements and failures to deliver. And then still, even when they appear on threshold lists, there's still no accountability. So at the end of the day, the solution overall for the market is to force settlement. And that's one step. How you go back and fix situations like MMTLP, there's creative means of doing that. And yes, we don't want to necessarily put targets on the bodies, the governmental bodies that would be participating in that. But there's a precedent. There's a precedent that you can research on your own accord and figure out how they've handled that. I just named two entities that went through a very similar precedent, and those fines and really the money was recouped over a decade. So it's not something that immediately you have to have a ledger where you're defining where the liabilities exist, who owes what, and pay that out all at once. It can be done over time, but you need to have an instrument to do that, and those
Well,
exist.
that'll be the Treasury. Am I right or wrong?
Take a hint. God.
All right, so let's go to one. real quick, and then it's time, and then I see that JR took a mic, and I want to go to him because we don't get to hear from him that often, even though the Eagles won. Go ahead, 100.
Ah, damn. Curtis, you got to stop me if I say too much.
I can't stomp on your toes digitally, so just don't say too much.
We talked about the DTC and we talked about what is going on with how they manage FTDs. And if there's something that's very old and they have their own ledger and the brokers have their own ledger, there has to be some type of technology that evolves and merges both at the same time so that you could force settlement. I'll just leave it there.
That is enough. That's a cherry topper right there. That's perfect.
Let's go. It's time.
Just Curtis kind of covered some of the stuff, but I think if anyone's ever stepped into a business to clean it up, make it more profitable, I think the easiest way to do that is take some departments and consolidate them. So I think if you were to take one self-serving entity, roll it into another one, clean the one up that you rolled it into, just an idea, maybe get rid of the porn department and put some oversight in those roles, you'd be on your way to a good start.
You guys hint about a lot of things I'm gonna have to put on the net so everybody knows what the hell you guys are talking about. But the SEC was caught watching porn on Pornhub. Go ahead, Jr.
Nah, I wanted to debate Curtis on this
Uh
whole
oh.
FINRA thing. You know, you had made a comment. I texted you, but you didn't respond, but that's okay. So you had mentioned that Congress granted FINRA their immunity. What statutory provision is that? Do you know?
Do you know?
Well, the reason I ask is because I don't think there is one. I think their immunity was codified under Supreme Court case law, and it's only obviously when they act in their air quote regulatory capacity. I know you know that, but we talked about this at Pulte's event. That's weakening on its own, and I'm not suggesting that Congress shouldn't do something. They absolutely should, but I think we're starting to see the cracks in case law and in their lack of inaction with some of these cases that they're losing. They're not appealing them, and if they're not appealing them, that tells me that they think they're going to lose on appeal, and they don't want to make the situation worse. So and Alpine is the most recent example of that under the non-delegation clause. And we know they did the exact same thing in MMTLP that they did in Alpine. So I was just curious if you knew what or if you had a statutory provision to cite, because I've never seen one.
No, I've seen it referenced, but it's the case law is Securities Exchange Act 1934, Section 15A, 15 USC 780-3.
Okay, I'll check it out. So that's all. That's all I was going to add.
All right, guys. Where's Jack Smitty when you need him?
Yes, and the Eagles did win the Super Bowl. I'm sure everyone's well aware of that.
If anybody could get a hold of Jack, let him know I sent him a DM. Up on the nest, it's breaking. Trump says he plans on signing an executive order making all sexual-based crimes against children a federal offense, carrying a mandatory death sentence.
Wait, is that real?
I think I just posted on it. I think Jack is gonna have fun with that one. Again, Mr. Gasparino. Go ahead, Kevin B.
Hey, Busy. No, Curtis was very eloquently talking about, forced settlement and or what, under your question as to what can be done to fix it. And yeah, that's what it's all about. It's about settlement. But, in my previous document, even previous to this amicus brief that I've done, I list, in this case, 18 things that makes a mockery of the whole borrowing thing. Take for example the rehypothecation, the use of derivatives for fake locates, the exemption that exists for market makers, the categorization of FTDs that just get reported and nothing gets done about them. And I can carry on and on and on, but there's all these exceptions and exceptions and exceptions and loopholes in what basically, in their mind, justifies fake borrows or borrows that shouldn't exist. And if anybody had a half interest in actually improving the system, they would look to all these exemptions and loopholes and try and eradicate some of them so that settlement would be forced, so that borrowing would become more legitimate as opposed to, seriously, share borrowing is a complete and utter farce. They basically admit to it when they water it down to a locate. They say, "Oh, we don't have to borrow it; we can just locate it." We can use, as long as we have a reasonable belief that we one day going to identify a share that we can locate, then we can pretend that we're borrowing it. This is the ludicrous BS level that we've gotten to. There is no sincere, deliberate borrowing of a share with a intention to settle it.
Kevin B, let me stop you there for a second. I agree 100% with you. And I actually did a post, I believe it was yesterday. And if anybody remembers when Tom Ronk had a YouTube live with Terry Lynch, Eric Sprott, Wes Christian, it was somebody else in there, I can't remember. But he did mention the loophole, the market maker, but they're actually leasing out their MPID to non-licensed brokers that are actually have that same loophole that the market makers have. So that is a problem. So I just wanted to bring that up. That you're absolutely correct, and everybody's just turning a blind eye, and this is why there's no such thing as supply and demand in the stock market. So it's overinflated, right? And it's just a full blown free for all for them to counterfeit the shares, and nobody holds them accountable, and they're not paying up the piper, so they ship them overseas. So I encourage everybody to look up that video and go see how Tom Ronk was describing it. So it is concerning. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. Take for instance the whole thing about transparency, which is really what motivated me towards the amicus brief, is the SEC coming out and saying, we can't have transparency because that will put that will make the short sellers susceptible to have to settle their debts. It will make them susceptible to a short squeeze. So we don't want to do anything that's going to encourage settlement. This is the point. We are so far removed. If the ideal is settlement, right now what the SEC is preaching and advocating for is non-settlement, because if you don't have transparency, you're not going to have settlement. It's insane. It's insane. These people are totally insane, and they've become so brazen in their impunity that they will spew any shit and think that the man in the street must just suck it up like it's we can't be this dumb. if they go out and say, oh, it's going to make them susceptible to a short squeeze, well, bloody hell, they should be settling their debts. If that causes them to squeeze, they fucking sold too many that they didn't own.
And what did Dr. Shapiro say, Curtis?
Say it.
You
Yeah,
say it.
he said short squeezes are basically the best deterrent. So it's the punishment, right? It's the pain factor that it's the other side of making that unlimited risk bet. So it's the best way of regulating, and he has reiterated that in interviews with us. He has stated that prior to communicating with us in prior testimony, and he actually just said it a couple months ago on an interview with Dave Lauer, and when he was being consulted for Reg Show implementation and
Right.
potential amendments of Reg Show.
It is settlement, and if we're going to be at all honest about whether borrowing is true borrowing or just the theft of proceeds, there has to be settlement, and it has to be a demonstrated, real settlement, proven settlement. And we are just so far removed from that with all the loopholes, and they are not closing loopholes, they are creating more loopholes. They're not moving towards transparency, they're moving away from transparency. I am so sick and tired of hearing about the SEC as a project to do this, or FINRA has a project to do that. 5 years ago, FINRA was soliciting, so-called soliciting input from investors on how to improve short reporting. 5 years ago. Have they done anything? No, they haven't done squat. They've done nothing. They have no sincere, they are in a nutshell just spewing hot air. And
Kevin, if you allow me, let me play this and I'll
course,
let you continue. But it goes back to what Curtis just mentioned or what Dr. Shapiro said. But listen closely, guys. Just listen closely.
Story that when they were going through, I was advising the SEC on Reg Show, and when they showed me the original version, I said to them, you know, there are enormous loopholes here. You're not going to really resolve the problem. And they said, we're concerned about short squeezes. And I said, you shouldn't be concerned about short squeezes. Short squeezes are the way the market disciplines people who've broken the rules. And you should welcome them. But that's not their view. So the SEC.
There you go. That's what Dr. Shapiro said. Go ahead, continue on Kevin.
yeah, I mean it's spot on. It's not only the penalty; it's the actual settlement. Without settlement, you left with theft. You know, I mean, if the borrowing was real, if the borrowing was as he says done in terms of the rules, you know, you're not going to have a big squeeze. You're going to have a little squeeze, and the price is going to go up a little bit, and it will then normalize again. But when you've used the exemptions and the derivatives and rehypothecated and substituted and duplicated, etc., 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 and I can literally carry on for another 5 minutes and tell you all the exceptions that they use. If you do all of that, you're going to have a real squeeze, but that's got nothing to do with any pumping by memes or anything. It's got everything to do with the fact that they broke the system, and the system is now correcting their brokenness. And it's, you know, it must happen. It should happen. But in the meantime, show some show some sincerity to your mission and your objective of actually giving a shit for investors and fairness and capital formation. Because short selling does nothing for capital formation. Nothing. Short selling is taking money out of the capital markets. That's what short selling is. It's taking money out. It's not putting money in. It's not investing. It's not shareholding. It's not forming any capital. So if they're at all, even a tiny little bit sincere, they will start closing loopholes. They will start having transparency. They will, and you know what? You'll see short sales disappear completely, because you know what? Short sales are only working for them because they're able to exploit it to the nth degree. Because the SEC will literally perjure itself, commit crime, then allow a short squeeze to happen. And we saw that in MMTLP. We saw that in MMTLP because FINRA said, screw this, we are not going to ensure settlement. And I mean, the U3 halt was beyond words wrong. The fact that they screwed up the timing of the spin out, that is beyond excuse. Beyond excuse. And it's elementary. It's not complicated stuff. It wasn't difficult. They deliberately screwed it up. And the fact that they did not go out, that FINRA did not instruct its members were begging for instruction. We have proof of correspondence from brokers telling the clients that they're waiting for FINRA to give them instructions. So the brokers were begging FINRA for instructions. FINRA deliberately obstructed the smooth spin out of this company. It was their job to tell the brokers, to tell their clients to settle their short positions. And the fact that they did not do that makes them complicit in fraud, in theft. And they would rather do that than allow a short squeeze. And that tells you exactly how buggered up the system is, how much they have broken the system. Because they couldn't allow the settlement to happen, because they broke the system. It's as simple as that, and they need to be held accountable. They all need to go to prison.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, guys. I think we went through all the hands, and we've been here for a while already. I think Curtis wants to get off the mic. I'm trying to look for this post to play it real quick, but I can't find it. Let's shut it down unless anybody else has something to add. But I want to leave with Art Burn. Are you there?
I am.
You have to leave us with the Puzzle Raccoon voice.
This is not financial advice. If it was financial, I can't think. If it was financial advice, then, well, it would be you shouldn't have invested in a pump and dump. MMTLP's pump and dump. MMAT's pump and dump. There ain't no oil, ain't no assets, and you guys are a bunch of dum-dums. Good
I think you
night.
did I think you did a great job, but you got to lower your IQ about like 80 points to make it believable. I can feel the IQ coming through the tone of your voice.
I felt like with my IQ was pretty off just then.
I had to hear it one more time. I got to see that Bishop took a mic. Go ahead, Bishop.
So my question is both for Curtis and Busy. Did you guys watch the video that I sent earlier? Because if not, then my next comment's not going to make a whole lot of sense. Because I will sit here and say, watching Tom Slocum get a little froggy and then run face first into Curtis was fucking hilarious.
Look, I don't have any hate for the guy. Like, whatever. I think a lot of these people, it's just, again, it's my opinion because I can't make sense of it otherwise. I think a lot of these people are here, and it's not on their own accord. That's not where they wish to spend their free time just because they want to spend their free time in something that they're not invested in. So whatever is driving them to be here, whatever. But it's pretty bad.
Bishop, can you your mic's on?
It's pretty bad when you can't really speak to, even within your subject matter expertise, the whole rebuttal process for, okay, that's not how it works, that's not what you do when you're negotiating a contract. It's very interesting. If there were unpaid royalties that are notified, that the company is notified of in May, and immediately discussing paying for them along with any interest that would be accrued for that period of time, and that's part of the terms of the extension, as well as more than covering any well plugging liability in addition to future well plugging liabilities. I don't know how you get to have both sides of that argument where, okay, if the land is not mineral rich and therefore it's completely worthless, then why is it not a benefit to the Texas taxpayers to extend the lease of this, in his words, worthless land, where they're getting 10x the royalties, and you're not going to have any other interested leasees. You're not going to have it because it's worthless in your eyes. So not only are you going to recoup the missing royalties that they're informing the company of conveniently after so many years, they're conveniently notifying them in May of this year, they're going to get paid and interest on that. And then they're going to get paid 10x the royalties going forward on every acre of land. And then simultaneously they're going to get another bond that, if the issue was, your thought was, hey, they're just putting holes in the ground just to put holes in the ground and it's a giant scam, then the whole liability, the well plugging, is increased to $1,050,000, which more than covers, according to his estimate that everyone heard, $40,000 times 19 wells, $760,000. I just don't know how you have it both ways. But you know what? I'm not the independent arbitrator that would be handling those discussions between university lands and the company. But my bet would be that is a process that's probably underway, because it doesn't look like both parties were negotiating in good faith. So unless there's more communications, and I'm sure there are, unless there's more communications that we're not privy to, but what it appears to me, out of the numerous information requests that have been requested and administered, and those that have been granted thus far, it's painting a very one-sided picture. One where you have a very interested party in extending, and part of those extension discussions existed well before May of 2024, and then in May they say, well, you have all these unpaid royalties. Interesting. They just found all those unpaid royalties. It's just become a point of interest in 2024. Interesting. I wonder if anyone prompted that. I wonder if there's anyone that might have a financial interest in plugging wells. Is there anyone that said that they have been plugging thousands of wells that might have a financial interest? I don't know. It's not me. I don't have a financial interest in that. So I hope you saved this. I know you didn't record it live, Busy, but I hope you saved this space. There are always people that are clipping and taking things out of context, but I think the entirety of this space will be very interesting, including the we'll just call it the market subject matter expertise that was exhibited here today. But anyway, not by myself, by the way.
We got
Not by
we, Curtis. We got our own Sam I am now. His name is Insane. He likes to record the spaces. So I'm sure that, well, he told me he was recording. I don't know if he took the time to record the whole one, but I apologize, guys, that I didn't realize
Always record,
that I
always
didn't
record. Even if
record.
you're opening up for 5 minutes, always record. But let me say one more thing, Busy, and then I'll put the mic down. So it's fine. Like I really, I personally, I personally do not have a problem with anybody that wants to ask questions. It's personally not my responsibility to defend any of the leaders or the company itself. I obviously have I have a vested interest as an actual investor in this company. I have a vested interest, but if somebody else wants to disparage and wants to make publicly defamatory statements, then be my guest. You're able to do that. And if you have questions and if you want to bring your subject matter expertise to the table to present questions that I may not be thinking of, that I may not be asking, I welcome it. I honestly welcome it with open arms. What I don't like is the very one sided narrative. And what's very interesting and what has been the common theme throughout this entire process over 2 years is anybody that doesn't know me from back in the day, from back before 2022, the reason you didn't see me talking about MMTLP is because many of you that were talking and in excitement as new investors of MMTLP, I didn't like you. Isn't that funny? How one of like the people that is like associated with this on the social media, like I'm thrown in there as a social media influencer. Does anyone know that why all those Voltron guys that I don't have a conflicting relationship with them? It's because we were all looking at who listed MMTLP against the will of the issuer, the company. And I was upset as an OG investor that, as many OG investors were, that this thing was listed against the will of the company. And what became really obvious to me very shortly was the fact that they likely listed it so they could cover their liabilities. And it didn't have a numeric value associated with it. So I was mad because MMTLP getting listed was actually taking away attention and potentially value from my primary investment, which was the parent company, Metamaterials Inc. So I didn't like it, and I didn't like the people that were talking about it religiously over and over again. And I felt that it was quite frankly unfair that on October 7th that people got to buy the asset that I held through the merger, I held through the RTO to earn my preferred shares, that it became publicly listed on the OTC, the Wild West, where there wasn't going to be any level of appropriate oversight. And oh, by the way, that came to fruition. So they cannot paint me with the same brush. This isn't all about me, but this is just why I'm the enigma that they're not going to be able to screw with, because I literally despised people that were talking about MMTLP because in my mind, it was taken away from my primary investment. Now, I don't have any personal problem, and I wasn't going out and trying to thwart MMTLP from trading or anything like that, but I didn't agree with it, and I wouldn't talk about it. I wanted to talk about my investment in the technology that I was really excited about. So it's interesting when you hear people that come out that have no actual, or they claim to have no financial exposure, or they have no financial incentive of being here, and yet they want to call out all of the people and who was financially benefiting in this and that. And first of all, I can call BS because I was around. I was around. And oh, by the way, I know the basics of market mechanics where, oh, by the way, these shares were already issued. And so the company isn't benefiting one single penny, not one single penny. If you want to make the argument that individuals that sell at an inflated price could benefit, sure, you can make that. You can make that statement all day long, but you better recognize simultaneously that they could have sold in Torchlight, and Torchlight was at $11 and change. You're going to make that argument too? They could have sold it then. It's the same access, same oil and gas rights. You're going to make that argument? There are holes abound in every single one of their arguments. And the reason that they're still here, in my opinion, is because they want to discourage you from fighting back and providing and demanding transparency around what happened surrounding all of these transactions. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with demanding accountability. I think we were really nice in asking for transparency and accountability at first. And now I think we're afforded the luxury of demanding that accountability, because after we took the initial outreach efforts to our regulators, FINRA and the SEC, after we have reached out to our broker dealers and trying to get additional transparency, and after we organized through grassroots efforts through Congress to ask these same very questions of which they thumbed their nose at and answered in a completely disingenuous fashion, then I think we get to demand accountability. And you know, the best part of all of this is we have a new administration in the US that is also demanding that transparency and accountability across the board and eliminating fraud under all the rocks that it exists today. So buckle up, buttercups, because we're not going away. I'm certainly not. And this is going to get real spicy really quickly.
I love what you said, and just to add to that, one reason why they're still here is because we're seeing Doge go through and do the great purge, right? When they get rid of all the dead rot of the government, of this bureaucracy, right? Well, but then what's the next step after that, right? They have to then do the great hiring of the builders, right? And so they need us, right? And so, there's nothing they can do at this point. I mean, there's going to be a settlement. I have no idea how much it was, right? I probably shouldn't even put any. Anyway, it's probably gonna be a lot, but whatever the settlement is, like, it's gonna happen no matter whether you are in a space or not, or you like someone you don't. It's gonna hit your account, right? the what they want to avoid is the fact that it's like we figure out, hey, someone like needs to actually participate, right? And this whole experience has led to people stepping up. Like, people have all these wild conspiracies about me. Is like, no, I just saw that Pulte was a builder. I'm like, he seems to be helping people. I don't know. Like, I don't make any money out of this. Like, I got a, my ex account, I got like $30 in the last for however many hundreds of hours I spent in the last 2 weeks. So um it's just because I realized, like, someone has to step up. Otherwise, like, we're gonna have swamp creatures just float back to the top and take control, because those that want to lead usually shouldn't lead. And so I think that they're trying to dishearten us, trying to just make us want to just forget about it and go away, which just doesn't mean we have to think about it the whole time. But we should be thinking, what can we do to get involved, to be part of this, because there's not some invisible wall between us and the government, right? We the people are the government, right? Like, there, you can run for an office. I mean, just look at, like, the Feldman guy or whatever. Like, looks like a total idiot. Like, speaks like a total idiot. Bro, I don't even follow him that much. Just everything I've seen him do is very dumb, right? And somehow so it's like, or Feldman, is that, anyway, or Fetterman, that's who I was thinking. Okay, Fetterman. But like, that's just the thing, is that, like, we're way more qualified, probably the least qualified person in this group, which I'd be like in the middle in a lot of ways, right? Like, the least qualified person in this group is better than probably a quarter of the senators, like, easy. So don't let them drain your energy by their constant gaslighting attacks and whatnot. Just look for ways to build, and know that
It's not
you're powerful.
gaslighting if it's the truth.
I think after Doge it's done, there's gonna be a lot of open seats, so anybody could run. Let's Michael, give me a second. I know Bishop, you're going all crazy with your hand. Go ahead, man.
So, two things. One, I would like to offer a counterpoint to Tom Slocum as somebody who's worked with Fortune 10, 50, 100, 500, 1,000 companies over the last decade in a sales capacity doing contract negotiations. Tom, that is how contracts work. I hate to tell you, anything and everything is on the table. It's all about asks and rejections. So, like, go fuck yourself. With what Curtis said about how like Nextbridge was offering the 1.144 million, like yeah, sure, they might have fucked up. I'll concede that, but you know what? They were trying to make it right. And they were trying to make it right even further by going 10x over what the royalties were year after year. So go after yourself. As an account manager and as somebody who does contract negotiations on a day-to-day basis with those Fortune 1000 companies, that's narrow-minded and short-sighted on the university lands to say no, and that impacts Texas shareholders more than anything else. So maybe you should shift your focus away from Nextbridge and focus on the bullshit the University Lands has pulled. From there, Curtis, I want to just gently push back on a slight point that you had made earlier about demanding accountability and action. I think we should say we can demand gently, professionally, and politely the accountability for our representatives and our Congress members.
Yes,
Correct?
I 100% agree with that. I think what I mean to say by that is that the situation demands accountability and transparency, not that it should not be a luxury and it should not be viewed as a luxury. It should be the status quo. It should be business as usual. It shouldn't be an extraordinary circumstance to get transparency on an extraordinary situation or one that's an everyday situation. It should just be provided by default. And the mere existence of all of this BS is just another point of why the system has to be reformed. It's not something that I personally set out to do because reform is hard, and I don't think anybody it's slow. I don't think anybody wants slow. I want immediate resolution, but unfortunately, we've learned that these obstacles are very powerful. That the people in place are there to uphold the existing system because they are benefactors of it, and it's just to go back on it, the situation demands transparency, demands accountability. We should absolutely, I just want to co-sign what you said, we should absolutely maintain professionalism as we ask for those things to occur, both through Congress, through our state AGs, from the media. But I think anybody that is completely objective and looks at the situation and the facts at hand and thinks that it does not demand answers and basic accountability and transparency is absolutely biased and likely a benefactor of said system.
Hey, Starboard, I know that you have your hand up before. You want to go ahead?
Oh, no, that's okay. Let's thank Tony go. It's all good.
So, okay, he dropped. Somebody drop him?
I did not. Who?
Let's give Sanctimony a shill.
I don't know. I don't think so. It doesn't look
I don't
like
know.
it.
Thought I seen him on the Super Troopers crew. All right, he's not coming up to take a mic. Everybody good?
I just want to thank
Starboard?
you for this wonderful space. It's nice to hear from you. And I don't know what it is about you California guys. But besides Drew, you also had great birdies behind you a lot of times while you were speaking. I'm assuming you were outside, which was really
Yeah, well,
funny, but it was also really nice to hear for those of us stuck in winter.
I think I'm back on.
okay. You have the mic, good sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened. My internet did something here at the house. Long time to talk. I try not to say anything unless it's worth talking about. Am I glitching here again?
No, you're good. Welcome to the space.
Okay. I keep getting little signals on my phone saying my connection's like on and off. But anyway, no, just I sent. I think 100 talked to me about it for a second. I said it's a curse.
Uh-oh.
Can anybody hear him?
Nope. I'll see.
Sanctimony glitching out really bad. Try it again.
Let me see what he sent.
Didn't we have issues with this guy before? I kind of want to say yes. He follows you guys. I mean, he posts his stuff from MMTLP.
Yeah, he's not an adversary.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I mean, I didn't drop him. I mean, he's just having bad
Yeah.
connection. I mean, I want to get
It
speak,
looks like
but
he sent something regarding what Steph was bringing up, or Jen. I don't remember who brought it up. I think multiple people have brought up the federal orphan well program funding that exists, but that's really that's really a moot, as in MOOT. That is really a moot point because again, NextBridge as part of the terms for extension was they put again that within 6 months of the extension agreement that they would have an additional $1 million bond with the Texas Railroad Commission for any well plugging liability. So that would up their total bond total to $1,050,000, which more than covers the $760,000 well plugging liability according to his estimates. So it wouldn't even need to rely on that federal well plugging program. So
thank you, good
that
sir.
is a moot point. Moot.
Uh,
MOOT. Moot point. It's
yeah,
never gonna
Doctor
get
E.
old.
Yes, not just like Torchlight. He's never gonna let go because I didn't tell him about Florida. Go Grande. Go ahead. You have the mic.
Thanks, Busy. Thanks for the space. Um, I haven't been here the whole time, so I may have missed some things. But whether I'm a dreamer or not, I think we deserve more than transparency. I hope someone said that, we deserve settlement and some kind of resolution. And really, what we deserve is to be put back in the same shoes we were wearing on December 9th, if at all possible, that the Oro Grande lease be um, gotten back. Because when we were trading or whatever, it does matter if a person were trading what the backstop is for the trade. And just because we were halted by FINRA, in many of our minds improperly, that would affect how it would trade or even what it would settle for. So just wanted to throw that in, but thanks for a lot
Wait,
of very
I got
good
it.
information.
I gotta ask you a question. So, are you telling me that you would want this thing to trade with closed position only to revert back to that to have our 2 days back? Is that what you're saying?
I would prefer that with having recovered the Oro Grande lease, because I think that is most in conformance with property law.
Right. Oh yeah, that definitely 100% because I think that ship has sailed. If we don't have the assets to back it up, I'd rather not go there and have 2 trading days back. Who knows? But no, if they have their leases agreement back, absolutely. I
Yeah,
don't know.
well, and
People have
clearly
different.
I don't have any knowledge. I'm just random Twitter person out here in California. But that is what we lost. Back December 9th, there was the Oro Grande. It was still there. And I would think if I had 69 million shares that Greg McCabe does, that he has every incentive to get it back if that's at all possible. But
Well, let's ask the question to the panel over here. Costas, I see that you took a mic. My question is, can this be reverted back? I mean,
Yes,
can they? Go ahead.
there's in the contract there is a grace period of 6 months after expiration where they get to sort of discuss renewal terms. It's in the contract, it's in the original contract from way back when. There's a 6 month provision where they can reassess the lease.
Well, there you go.
I'm not saying it's going to
You guys are
happen,
not
but it is in the contract that there's a 6 month sort of grace period.
okay. Geez, I keep on getting mic requests, which is a good thing. But guys, I've been going, I'm pretty sure somebody like Insane or somebody in here could open up a space. But I'm gonna have Beaner. I don't like to say Beaner because that's just I know
It's my
it's
name,
Beaner.
buddy. You're good.
That sounds so bad though. I'm from LA. You don't just say
I'm
that.
from Canada, man. That means nothing up here. I've had that name before. It was a derogatory slur in California. Regardless, I think that 2 days of trading is absolutely possible. Even if there's not precedent for it, there's precedent for nothing we're doing, right? Tell me another stock that's been held for like 2.5 years. We're rewriting the book. We can guess what they're going to do. The fact of the matter is we don't know, and the fact of the matter is they owe us. We have money tied up illegally. They have to give it back. End of story. If we get it through trading, awesome. If not, give me a fucking Jesus, what is it called? What that Hawaiian pineapple company, a settlement they had a few years ago. Dole.
Joel.
Yeah, thank you. I have dysnomia. I can't remember words sometimes.
Yeah,
There
I
is
can't
no
either.
there's no precedent. So we can extrapolate whatever the hell we want. The fact is we don't know. How can they resolve something this big? They don't know. That is what has been said. They don't know how to fix this. So we can't really say how it's going to resolve. But the fact is they owe us. End of story.
Let's talk. Let's talk about it. What does that look like? I mean, knowing all the shit that we know, right? And if they would actually force them to close out the precision, what's the ceiling here? Are they just gonna? I mean, I know some would sell at a certain point, like I'm out of here. Fuck this. This is enough because it just depends on the amount of shares you have. But Curtis, what does that look like? Let's just hypothetically
Let's
say.
not speculate. Like that's not no, I don't participate in those.
Because holy shit, I mean,
First of all, you're
that would
talking
be
about an equation that you don't have all
that
the
thing
variables to. But
correct, and it will be dangerous to the other side because for them it will be easier if they will get a settlement because it's just one price point and they know what they're getting themselves into. But if they will go out here and do close position only and put those 2 trading days, I, I just
I
leave it
would
there.
argue that what's easier for them is ultimately irrelevant. We are the victims, not them. They created the situation, not us. So it is their responsibility to make us whole. That is what America is based upon, the free economy. I mean, I can take my fucking soapbox here as much. I know what reality is. Don't worry. But at the end of the day, they have to make it right. It is not our obligation to make it easy for them. It is their obligation to make us whole because they created the crime, not us.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I mean, you're 100% correct. But all right, well, let's not talk about it because I know it's going to spark up a whole fucking debate
yeah,
here, and
I
I want.
think the one thing that we can universally agree upon. By the way, I'm in agreement. I don't particularly think uh, going back and resetting and expecting a different result with the same regulatory bodies in place is a good formula, and expecting a different result. Um, maybe I'm just skeptical after going through this whole fiasco. But I do think there will absolutely be some level of very positive restitution, and we'll have to see what means that comes. But what we all have to do is advocate for, again, the transparency, what that will expose. It will really demand some level of accountability, and I think once we have a little bit better picture as to just how oversold it is, then I think it starts becoming more interesting to have those conversations about what realistically could happen or what realistically could not happen. But I think it's premature until we have that better picture, and that's really what we've been advocating for 2 years. Is just, all right, can we get the share count? Can we at least expose the liabilities that exist across all of these member firms?
But Michael said 3 weeks.
Uh,
I'm fucking with you, Michael.
anything's fine. Look, there's stuff that's gonna come quickly uh, that I know of, and then
That's what she said. I had
there's
to say.
gonna be stuff that comes quickly, but it's not. It's just we all get our own lens of your level of involvement and the conversations that happen. That's what your perspective is going to be based upon. And so the things that I know that are in the works are either a direct result of work that I've put in or that I'm a participant to, or things that I see coming, right? Read between the lines. But um, we can see the larger macro uh, underbelly of what's happening right now, and that is going through agency by agency that have been literally named, whether in Project 2025 or whether they've been named as
The
an
time
agency
is
of
10
government that has been
o'clock
weaponized.
p.m.
Each one of those, it's like that meme with the Grim Reaper going through and open up each door. That they're going through each and every one and exposing it for exactly what it is. Doesn't matter what political allegiances exist, they're going through and they're exposing it all. And I think that only serves to benefit us. So let's just see how that plays out, and let's make some noise and advocate in the most professional manner possible for some additional transparency, because I do think that positive momentum and public interest moves us up the priority list.
And just to make it very clear, it was not my tweet. I was responding to a tweet that several people were like, "Hey, this guy seems to be from the Bed Bath community. Do you know about it?" Right?
You Mike, relax.
No,
Calm
but I also, I knew it was going to cause some kickback, but I mean, I really don't care at this point, right? The reason I wrote it, one is I knew that some people, I don't know. I really do think there is some optimism that should come, right? Because I think good things are happening. But I think also, like, the reason I wrote it is it's like, well, this is going to come because of Doge, right? And so it's like, this is a perfect example of what Doge is fighting for, and just to, in any way we can, kind of help this process, because it it has to happen, right? And yeah, so that was why I wrote it.
Yeah, but it seems clear at this point that we had no chance of ever winning this if it wasn't for what was happening right now. Maybe.
Exactly.
So
Oh, guys, I 100% disagree with that statement.
I hope so.
I'm not against you at all, but
No.
I think
Please
that I think that because this is so, pardon the language, but fucking crazy, that they don't know how to fix it. But our money still exists. Our money's tied up. They can't make it disappear, those paper trails. Whether it be through the legal, judicial, whatever process, something would happen. Whether we get the same result, we would. I believe Doge is the answer here. I think Elon is going to shake the tree of the SEC there, and money's going to fall out in our favor. But I mean, personal perspective.
Wouldn't you say it's completely set up so no matter how much they have to do, nobody in those seats were ever going to do anything about it? I mean, they could just
not willingly.
more and more and more. Right, and nobody. Right. Eventually, somebody was going to have to come to the table to pull the trigger and make them do it. I mean,
I'm on board with everything you just said, 100%.
Yeah, I'm on board. I mean, it's a speculation. Who knows? But go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted.
Oh God, no! You're absolutely right, and that's the point I was gonna say. It would have to end, whether or not it be the resolution we wanted. We are entitled to something at this point, right? I knew my number. You all knew your number going into December 12th, 2022. Now we have that number plus what we could take that money and leverage it into. That is case law. That is precedent. That's not me making shit up. It's law. So if you've kept track of your trades and you can prove it more, $1,000 a share is not unrealistic. I mean, looking at the flip side of the script, is there trillions of dollars they can pay out for this? Probably not. But we didn't create the problem. That's their problem. It isn't ours. They need to figure it out or go bankrupt.
Just by getting that money back from Ukraine, I think we all could get paid out and get some amount.
Right.
Anyways, listen, guys, I want to get off. Let's give another community member an opportunity to open up a space and keep the conversation going. But thank you so much for everybody that took a mic today. Interesting conversation, great dialogue. Uh, Thank you, Artburn and Starboard, for helping me out, and especially you, Art Buns, keeping everybody in check and having a healthy debate, right? Civil
You're right.
debate,
Art
kind of.
burn, art
But
buns, and that stinky raccoon who ain't short nothing, never shorted nothing. But back when I was in Schwab and I was all short that stock, I don't know what to say, but that there were times I could keep going. I don't know where I'm going with this. Uh,
your
I
kids are
mean, at
probably
this
looking at
point,
you.
it
What's
was
wrong with you,
easier when I
mommy?
didn't have an audience.
All right. With that being said, thank you, Curtis. 100, Insane, Kevin B. It's time.
Thank
Beaner.
you, everybody. This was awesome.
Mike.
Thank
Love
you,
you.
Busy, for hosting.
Love
Love
you, Ross.
you,
Love you
Thank you
brother.
all.
so much. Are you guys really brothers
Maybe,
and
Yes.
sisters?
maybe.
I mean,
Yes.
wow. All right. All right. Talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good night. Bye.